Okay, it is June 24th, and we're going to call our first meeting, which is a special town council meeting agenda to order. It is 6:31 PM.
Make this go away.
All are present except for Councilor Bordelon.
Mayor, can I just mention, Councilor Bordelon asked me to relay to people if there was a medical emergency with the pet, and she'll join on Zoom if possible later.
Okay, thank you. All right, first up is roll call, which I just took care of, and then new business. We have 2025-551-1, the Board of Education STEM Camp Donation Acceptance. Councilor Parker, would you like to take that one?
Make a resolution accepting donations from Electric Boat for STEM Camp, whereas Electric Boat 1 to assist the community in running a STEM camp for youth in the area, and whereas Groton Public Schools received a donation from Electric Boat in the amount of $17,000, and whereas this donation will assist with support expenses related to the camp, including teachers, paraprofessionals, a secretary, a nurse, transportation, and supplies, and whereas the town charter requires the town council to approve acceptance and use of unbudgeted donations, and whereas any donations over $10,000 must be also approved by the town's representative town meeting, RTM, now therefore be it resolved that the town council accepts the donation from Electric Boat in the amount of $17,000 to provide STEM camp in the community and refer the item to the RTM per Rule 6.5.3. I so move.
Second, Jones.
Moved by Parker, seconded by Jones.
Mayor, I believe Councilor Bordelon's arrived online. I think she was under my name. I just changed it. You might want to just verify that it is her.
Councilor Bordelon, are you there?
Yeah, I was here from the start as well.
All right, I have you arriving at 6:31 then. Okay. Do we have any comments? I can't see if Councilor Bordelon, if she would have her hand up or not.
The hand's not up.
Okay. All right, let's take a vote on 2025-551-1, Board of Education STEM Camp Donation Acceptance. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 8-0. Okay, motion for adjournment?
So, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Rusk, seconded by Pacino. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 8-0.
At the time, what time?
Oh, yeah. 6:34 PM. All right. On to our regular Town Council Committee of the Whole, regular meeting agenda on June 24th, 2025. Call to order, all present. Calendar and communications. Councilor Merritt, do you have anything you would like to share?
I attended one of the sessions put forth by the Mystic Chamber of Commerce for wooden tap. Very nice, very appropriate, very needed in the area.
Very nice. Councilor Bordelon?
Thank you. I attended the Fitch High School graduation. It was a very nice ceremony, and best of luck to all of the students as well as the middle school students this year as they take off on their new adventures. And I think that's all I have to report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Pacino?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have anything to pass.
Thank you. Councilor Rusk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's been a busy 2 weeks, so I'm going to go very quickly. Congratulations to Chief Fazaro for being elected as president of the Police Chief Association. That's huge and very great for our area. I attended a number of ribbon cuttings, so congratulations to the City of Groton on their new basketball court, which they did in conjunction with the Connecticut Sun and Electric Boat. I attended that with Councilor Parker. I attended the Personnel and Appointments Committee with Chair Jones. I attended a ribbon cutting for the new pickleball courts near the library. They're fantastic. Congratulations to the Town of Groton Parks and Rec. And I attended that with Councilor Merritt, Councilor Jones, and Mayor Franco. I want to say thank you to Councilor Parker, who, along with the City of Groton and the New London NAACP, put on a fantastic Juneteenth event on June 21st. And I attended that obviously with Councilor Parker and with Councilor Pacino. I also attended a ribbon cutting today for Groton Gill, which was done by the Town Beautification Committee. So thank you to the Town Beautification Committee. Thank you to Mayor Franco, who brought up this idea. It's a fantastic sculpture. If you have a moment to go down and take a look at it, it is at Esker Point Beach. And a couple things. Groton Community Meals has put out that they are seeking donations on their Facebook page. Groton Community Meals provides free meals to people in Groton or the surrounding area Mondays and Wednesdays. So they are looking for donations. The Groton Human Services is looking for food donations. That is on their page. There are free summer meals that started yesterday for children 18 and under. There are 6 sites in Groton. There's more information about that at Groton Public Schools Child and Nutrition Program Facebook page. I'm assuming it is also on the website, but I didn't look, so sorry about that. There are 2 mobile food pantries this week with United Way. There's one on Wednesday in New London and one on Friday in Groton. More information is available at unitedwayofsoutheasternconnecticut.org on their calendar page. And we are in the middle of a heat wave, so if you need help with the heat wave, please call 211 for shelters in your area. And that is it.
Great, thank you. Before we continue, Councilor Parker, would you mind taking care of the timer tonight? Thank you so much, I appreciate that. Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Rusk also mentioned, or already mentioned, the pickleball and the Gill the Fish, new statue down at Esker Point Beach. Congratulations also, and to our Parks and Rec Department for the fantastic job they've done on our new pickleball courts. There were people already playing immediately, and I think they're going to be a huge success, and they did a great job. We also want to highlight the lights that Mayor Franco brought into the project, and so I think it'll be a project that can get a lot of use down there. I attended the Trails Committee meeting this past week, and where we talk about all the different trails. Avalonia is talking about the Japanese knotweed problem that they have, the COP property, and again, congratulations to our Parks and Rec Department. They have completed the trails that they were doing and updating the trails, make it wheelchair accessible. They've added in the signage for the visually impaired, and as you know or not know, Groton is the test site for a sound software for visually impaired people, and this is the site, and that is all now up and working. The Groton Open Space is the Central Groton, they're surveying, and I just also want to say that I helped this past week, we built the 5th bridge that we have built on Groton Open Space property to get across different streams, so that was a lot of fun to do that. Pequot Woods is a new maps coming, and the Wilkebrook property is a forest management plan coming. That's it.
Thank you. Councilor McBride.
Thank you. No communication at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Parker.
Thank you, Councilor Rusk, for putting forth all the events we attended together. Thank you very much. I was just right before this meeting, I was on with TBCCA. They are continuing to put in applications for their SIF program for the new child care facility. They're working with Habitat for Humanity regarding their 60th anniversary, so more information is on the website, and we do have a discussion about them tonight. Thank you.
I just wanted to add a quick comment on the pickleball. The library is planning on ordering some equipment that people could check out there for pickleball, so hopefully they'll have those in soon.
All right, sounds wonderful. I'd also like to congratulate Chief Pizarro for becoming the president of the Connecticut Police Chiefs Association. That's wonderful. Also, I am just so happy that the pickleball courts are now open. This was a long time coming. This was a meeting that this council, maybe not counselors that were on here, but sat up till 1 o'clock in the morning allocating ARPA funds here at this annex. The pump track was also part of ARPA money, as well as some contributions from the town. And the fish sculpture came from the NIP funding. And the previous council had put some funding towards that. I give the Groton Beautification Committee so many props for coming up with the beautiful fish sculpture. It is now a piece of artwork in our community, which is sorely lacking. And thank you to the No Ink Foundry, an artist studio. They were the ones that actually manufactured it and created it, so I believe that was, it started off with Clint Wright. So it's beautiful. So, and by the way, it is hashtag Trash Free Groton. So if you go and take a picture, try and share that in your photo. Okay, moving on. Approval of minutes. Counselor McBride, would you like to take that?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of 2025-617 of June 10th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved by McBride, seconded by Parker.
I'm just tired.
Okay. Any changes? Any issue with the minutes? All right, seeing none, we will take a vote on 2025-617, June 10th, 2025 minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 8-0. On to new business. So before we start new business, I just want to remind counselors, because a few things came to my attention, that we are all familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, and I just want to reiterate that to try and stay within decorum, stay on topic of the motion, only speak when you have the floor, do not speak for your fellow counselors or allude to their motives, do not yell, do not speak beyond your time, and please do not bring frivolous motions forward, as well as do not speak negatively on items that have already been decided by the council. As well as, I just want to add this one, we've had a lot of point of informations. I would just ask counselors to please be courteous of your fellow counselors, and if you do have a point of information, please wait until the speaker is finished speaking before you bring forward your question. All right, so let's get to our business.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
with your permission, I'd like to send a text to Joe Burrell and ask him if
I have
he's-
not opened that yet.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
Okay, up number one, our first item of business is 2025-605, Town Council vacancy. This is in our packet on page 9. Just give a quick synopsis. There was a resignation of Counselor Dan Gajewski from our council, and our council needs to fill the vacancy. I want to explain the process. We will open nominations. All counselors are free to put a name on the floor. It does not need a second. I will close nominations. We can have discussions, debate, and then we will vote. It will be a roll call vote. We will do it in alphabetical order. You will state the name of the person that you would like to fill the seat. And the person who gets to 5 votes will become the new town councilor. Okay, so I now open nominations for this town council seat.
I have a name, but I just got a text from him. He can't be here because of a medical emergency at home. I just wanted to ask him, is he still in?
You are free to step away from the table because we can't use electronics at the
Correct,
table.
correct.
You are free to step away if you'd like to text.
Okay.
Nominations are open. Counselor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My nomination is for a man who's on the RTM. He represents District 4 in Groton. He watches all the meetings, the town council.
Counselor
the
Pacino, we're
town-
just putting forward a name and then we'll
I know.
have discussion later.
Okay.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'm sorry. You may not understand the process, I'm sorry.
David Good.
All right. All right, I would say that maybe we should give Counselor Merritt just a moment. Counselor Merritt.
I'd like to enter the name of Joe Burrill.
Thank you. Are there any more nominations? Any more nominations? Any more nominations? All right, I will close nominations for the position of town councilor. We have David Good on the floor, as well as Joe Burrell. Would anybody have anything they would like to say? Counselor Bordelon.
Thank you. There's been many vacancies over the years, and we've usually have had like a caucus or some form of discussion, since we're all the same party. Thus far, to my knowledge, or at least I have not been part of any discussion to talk about, different names or catalog people in to kind of discuss like where we want to go. So for me, I feel like it's, the time has not been properly allocated to do such. And the process seems to be way different. So I may abstain. Seems like there's no other names being put forward. So it seems as if, I don't know, other than an email that we received or a text message, we haven't had from the person that said they were interested, there's been no formal discussion. So I probably will abstain tonight. Yeah.
Does anybody else have anything?
Can I just?
Counselor Rusk?
I just wanted to address what was just said. There has been no caucus. I was approached by 2 different people and made phone calls to speak with both of those people. And that's how I made my decision tonight. So I just want to make sure the public is aware that there were no backdoor dealings and no decisions made before tonight.
Counselor McBride?
Would it be possible to request some background on these 2 individuals, or maybe the counselors who are recommending them? Because I haven't spoken to these 2 individuals, so I would love to know maybe a little bit about them, if that's possible.
That's if they would choose to
If they
speak on
choose,
their
if they choose
on
to,
their
yeah, because
time.
I don't.
Yes, on their time.
I know there's been no caucus or anything, but I don't really, I know their name and not much more about them, though. So if possible, if not, I understand.
Counselor Merritt, would you like to speak?
Yes, I speak for the name of Joe Burrill. He's been on the RTM for several years, probably as long as I was, which was almost 15 years. And he's a retired firefighter from the Quantic Bridge Fire Department. And he's very active in the community. And as far as any text message, like I said, he was tied up with a family emergency at this point in time. And I didn't ask him previously when he answered me, so I just texted him to find out if he was still interested, which he said he was, and I believe that that was appropriate, whereas he couldn't leave the house, and I'm not going to interfere with his medical emergency at home.
No.
That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. Counselor Pacino?
Would it be appropriate to allow Mr. David Good to speak on his own behalf?
Since I've been on the council, we have not proceeded that way. I will say, prior to me being on the council, they would bring people in front of them, they would question them. It turned, I would say, a little political, and there was some political gamesmanships being played. So since I've been on the council, it was people that were interested would reach out to the council, say they were interested, make phone calls, talk to counselors, and counselors would talk to them. And we came to the council and made the decision. And there was no caucus. there does not need to be a caucus. So,
Well, with that said, thank you, Madam Mayor. With that said, I first met David Good while working with him on the Pleasant Valley School Committee. The man was very knowledgeable, very professional, and I recently learned that he watches every town council meeting, every COW meeting, and all the ABC meetings, either live or on Memorex. That's for you Generation Xers out there. And I think he'd be a perfect fit for this council.
thank you. Counselor Parker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, yes, the process, as long as I've been on, and we've been on since 2017, is that whoever is interested has contacted each individual counselor as to the best of their ability of them trying to reach out to the counselors. So I had 2 via email and 1, yes, I've reached out to people that I thought would be the best fit for our council, and did it on my own and did my own research. That's what we're supposed to do with this process. It's no caucus to do this process. It's just one-on-one contacting the people to see if they fit, or you think they would fit with our values and how we can move forward with Groton. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Bordelon for your second time?
Thank you. As you stated, there should be, comments made, but there were some comments. My comment had nothing to say that there was a backdoor deal or some of the other comments that were being made. I simply was saying, based on the time that I've been on the council, there were times where we had caucuses, and the people who put their name forward, we brought them in and asked them, then everyone had their own individual vote. So that's the way it was done several times. And this time it's different. So that's what I'm saying. For me, I hear the name Good. I did get a text message. I did watch some of the way he votes. And for me, as it was stated by Councilor Parker about values, for me then, he did not vote in favor of the education budget, and that's something that I found to be very valuable. So for me, I would not be voting him in based on that if I was voting. But tonight, I'm probably abstaining. But again, I think the process is just a bit different. It's been done the last few times a lot different. In fact, couple times, Councilor Franco, Mayor Franco held a caucus. We held it at the little industrial park place. We all went. Everybody discussed. So I don't know what's different, but if that's the case, then it's good to know. Thank you.
I'm just going to make a correction there. That's not what we met for. That was for a different topic of caucus, and it had nothing to do with filling a position.
It was for mayor.
That was not to fill a position. So I would also like to state that we have never had and never brought in candidates who would like to be on this town council into a caucus. That would violate caucus rules because you cannot bring people in. That has never happened.
Point of order.
Councilor McBride,
Point of order.
your point of order.
I was not stating that the individuals applying came in. I was stating that we discussed.
That's not a question. Thank you.
That's my.
That's not a point of order. That's not a point of order. Councilor
You're
McBride?
wrongly representing what I said.
Councilor
that's what I'm
McBride
asking.
has the floor.
Great, but I just wanted to stand corrected. I
Councilor
didn't
Bordelon,
say-
you do not have the floor now.
Candidates
Councilor
are-
Bordelon, you're out of order.
Perfect.
Councilor McBride?
Thank you. It sounds like there's 2 great candidates that have been put forward. Unfortunately, whether or not I was supposed to do my due diligence, I wasn't aware that they were interested, so I'm not familiar with these 2 people. Sounds like they're great candidates, so I'm going to rely upon this council to make the vote, and I'm going to abstain because I feel with 8 people, I don't want to vote one way or the other and have one of these, someone that put someone forward that I'm not familiar with. So it sounds like they're great candidates. I look forward to either one of them coming forward. Thank you.
Counselor Merritt for your second time?
I'm going to make a stand on the vote that I think is appropriate. I'm not going to abstain. It's either you choose or you don't choose. You don't stand in the middle.
Thank you. All right, I'm just not seeing any more hands. We're going to take a roll call vote, and you will state the name that you would choose, or if you're going to abstain. Counselor Bordelon?
I'm abstaining.
I'd also like to remind counselors if somebody is not filled in this position within 45 days, the RTM will then decide. Counselor Jones?
David Good?
Counselor McBride?
Abstain.
Counselor Merritt?
Joe Burrill,
Counselor Parker?
David Good.
Counselor Pacino?
David Good.
Counselor Rusk?
David, good.
I will also vote for David Good. David Good has received 5 votes. Joe Burrell has received 1, and there are 2 abstentions, which are Bordelon and McBride. Mr. Good is in attendance, and we have asked the town clerk, Marisol Melendez, to be here this evening so she can swear him in. Mr. Good, would you please come forward? Your family may also come with you if you would like them to. Welcome. Yes, congratulations. Congratulations. Okay, Mr. Good, you can take your seat at the council right here. Actually, I think we might want to take a small recess, so if you would like, we would like to take some,
Never mind.
if you would like to take some pictures, then we can have a few moments with your family. We're going to take a small recess right now. It is 6:59, and we will resume in approximately 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, we're back from recess at 7:12, and we now have all counselors present. There are now 9 in attendance.
Mayor, I'm not seeing Councilor Bordelon on Zoom any longer.
Oh, Counselor Bordelon.
Maybe I'll let you know if it shows back up.
All right, so I'm sorry, we're back to 8. Counselor Bordelon is no longer in the meeting at this time. Maybe she'll come back. All right, up first is, second is 2025-619 TBCCA lease, 36-40 Central Avenue. This is in our packet on page 10. Counselor Russ?
Madam Mayor, due to a work conflict, I will be recusing myself from this discussion.
Okay. All right, there's
Madam Mayor,
there's
I
no,
can read it.
excuse me?
I can read it if you want me to.
All right, hold on one second.
Okay.
I have in my packet that there's no motion.
That's what I have too.
There's no motion in advance. The council could make one when and if you decide it's appropriate.
All right,
And we
do
do
you wanna-
have attorneys here both for Susquehanna Shapiro and for TBCCA. If
All
they
right,
want
is
to come
anybody
up.
bringing forward a presentation? Who will be leading that?
Let me- go ahead.
Good evening. Would you like to give us a presentation on the lease?
Microphone, just.
Microphone.
And speak into the microphone if you could, thank you.
So, my name is Greg Garabo, I'm with Susquehanna Shapiro. We negotiated the draft of the lease that is presently before you between the town of Groton and the TBCCA for improvements they are looking to make in connection with the existing facility, the daycare facility. This lease would go into effect only when and if the TBCCA is able to secure funding for the anticipated improvements at the location. The new term is in several phases. The first phase is, it's 1 month, and it's to allow the TBCCA to determine the feasibility of the project. Once that expires, then there's a 3-month period for them to complete due diligence, and then a 6-month period for obtaining the permits for the work to be done, and then a 12-month period for the construction. Once that is all completed, then you would go into the operations phase, and that is a 5 10-year terms for a total of 50 years. The rent would remain the same as it currently is under the existing lease. At the end of the term, the tenant, TBCCA, is required to remove the improvements on the property if the town so requests it to be removed. Of course, that could be 50 years from now, so we don't know what the status of those improvements would be. Or the town could at that time offer to purchase the value of the improvements at that time, which would be based on an appraisal. And that is the summary of the numerous pages that you have in front of you as to the terms of the lease. And TBCCA, as attorney, is here. I think you may be able to give us an update as to the status of the application.
Sure, thank you. Just to clarify, I'm John Paul Mandelberg. I'm the COO at TBCCA. And presently, we've procured promise of about $5 million in hand. And as Councilor Parker, I think I heard mentioned earlier in the meeting, that we have submitted a SIF application for an additional $10 million, which still will leave us needing to borrow or raise approximately $1.8 million. but we're hopeful to hear back with the SIF application in short order.
And just, I'm not sure that I expressed it, the use under this lease, which is the same as the current lease, would be for the operation of a daycare facility.
Correct.
Mayor.
Mr. Burr.
Just add a little background. Currently, there are 3 individual leases on that site. And as part of eventually potentially getting a loan, it needs to be combined into one long-term lease, and that's really the impetus for that kicked this off.
All right, Counselor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming, and TBCCA is a great asset to our community, so I think we've supported it, and congratulate the work you do on it. My questions are just on page, your page 10, our page 27 in the packet, and I did talk with the town manager earlier about this, but I just wanted to get real clear on it. So I think I understand better this page, the terms. So the first paragraph is 1 month, the next paragraph, due diligence, is 3, the next one is 6. Is there, which I didn't understand at the time when I read this, why you're having a 1-month contract. So does it automatically jump from initial term to due diligence, or what happens to make it go from step to step?
The terms will automatically jump unless the tenant gives notification that it intends to terminate the lease prior to the new term kicking in.
Okay, so they have a window in each of these steps where they could say, unlikely, but they could say.
Correct.
We don't want to do it. And is it dependent on you raising the funds, or do you have enough funds at the moment to make it, to let it proceed?
To come to full fruition, we do not have the funds in hand that we would need to finalize the improvements in construction. So it is contingent as specified about raising the funds for that initial term to begin, as I understand it.
Okay, so you need the initial funds, which you have now, or?
We have about $5 million in hand, and we've
Okay.
just applied with the most recent SIF round of funding for an additional $10 million.
Okay, and once you get the 10, that'll allow you to jump to the next level, or can you jump with the 5?
We would not be able to jump with the 5. We would need to procure the additional 10.
Okay, and where are you in the process of that?
We just submitted earlier this month, and so we'd probably not hear back for another 60, 90 days from the SIF.
Okay. So would it be your recommendation, I know we don't have a motion on this, is that you wait until you get those funds and then say, okay, now we can move forward? Is that,
With
if
the
you
actual
were approved
development
today,
and
you wouldn't be able to get
construction,
them, right?
Say that again?
If you are approved today, you wouldn't have the funds to
We
jump?
wouldn't have the funds to begin demolition and construction, that's correct.
Yeah, so you have to wait to get the funds, and then this agreement would kick into
Correct.
play.
And I think that's how it's phrased as far as the initial term,
Okay.
contingent on the funding in hand.
Okay. So this is more of just informational.
And if I may, my discussions with Attorney Jeff Godley, who worked on behalf of the TBCCA, it was my understanding that the lease needed to at least be approved in order for TBCCA to proceed with the funding, to show, yes, we do in fact have a lease that's workable and that we can proceed on.
So what you're looking for from us today is just like a approval that this is okay?
That's correct, Counselor.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Counselor Merritt?
Yes, I have a question for the representative for TVCCA. Quite some time ago, I remember this coming up, and for the town manager, maybe you could help me out. I recall a figure of 16 million. What was that?
That was the estimated total cost of the construction.
But weren't you given a grant for that?
Not in its entirety, no. The 5 million reference is what we've been able to raise thus far.
I thought you had submitted for a grant for
There is grants, we've just
for
submitted again.
16 million that was appropriated.
Not to my
Maybe I
knowledge.
missed something here.
I think
Mr.
that was our
Burt?
total estimated cost.
Yeah, that was just what they applied for. They did not receive full grant funding.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
So they're continuing to work on it.
Yeah.
And in order to obtain some of the avenues towards these funds, they need to have this longer-term lease in place.
Ah,
This should help them a little more easily, hopefully procure some funds.
Are you all set? Okay, Counselor Pacino?
Just have a quick little question. We have, thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a big issue with parks in town, especially this end of town. With that said, will there be any public portion of this property that would have a playground that could be used
Point of
when the
order.
center may be closed?
Point of order.
Your point of order.
We're only supposed to be discussing the lease, not what's in the details of the lease or changing the building program.
That's correct.
Oh, I step back.
So, do you have any questions on the lease itself?
No, you guys are professionals. I've read leases before, that's pretty good.
Counselor McBride?
Thank you. I'm in favor. There's just a question for the people who are listening from home or in the future. Can you maybe provide a 1-minute overview of what this facility is, the daycare facility, what the objective of the $15 million is, so people understand? Because a 50-year lease, people may be saying, why are we giving a 50-year lease and not getting a decent amount of rent, or why are we increasing the rent every year? And I think it's important they know the benefits of what you're doing with this facility. So if you could just give a 1-minute overview.
Sure,
Thanks.
absolutely, Counselor. So big picture, TBCCA is a federally designated anti-poverty agency for southeastern Connecticut. And with that charge, one of the initiatives put forth here via this lease and our applications for funding for the child care center is to renovate and improve, even reconstruct a larger facility where we could accommodate about threefold the number of children that we're currently serving, about 51, increasing to about 148 slots. And then part of our revised vision is to analyze the need for any second shift childcare services in conjunction with incorporation of additional employees with EB and other local employers.
Thank you.
All right, Counselor Good?
Just to tie into Counselor Jones' question, I see after the SIF of 10 million and and the 5 million you have currently, you're still going to need to raise 1.8 million. Wondering if that 1.8 million isn't raised, is this still something you'll be moving forward and over time raising the money, or is it a complete?
That would be our intention, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I have a few little questions. All right, I'm on page, this might just be, I'm not exactly sure, but on page 33 of our packet, which would be 16 on the contract, it lists out the rent, and I know they're very small, it's usually $1 per year. The construction term is, though, $1 per month. Is that, should it be a month, or should it be a year?
Yeah, I think that should probably be a year.
All right, so that is probably a correction for a year.
There goes $11 for the town.
There we go. Look at that, I just saved TBCCA $11.
Point- I apologize. Point of information, what section was that?
I'm sorry, let me state, this is on page 33 of our packet. I'm looking under construction term, that's section D. It's listed as $1 per month instead of $1 per year.
Thank you.
Yeah. My next question is on page 45. The assignment, subletting, and transfer. It goes into, this is section 9.1.
Thank you.
And it goes into where the tenant may sell, assign, mortgage, pledge, encumber, or any other manner transfer the improvements. And the improvement would be the building, because it's not the land, they can't sell the land or anything. But my question is, and they don't need to come to the council, they can do this sell or assign to anybody. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct, as long as they continue to have the same use, that's provided for. And section 9.1 at the end says that no transfer shall be binding upon the town as landlord unless and until they deliver a recordable instrument which contains a covenant of assumption of this lease, so they have to bind themselves to the entire provision of the lease, including the use. Further, notwithstanding the assumption, the tenant is not to be released from this lease. So TBCCA would still be bound by its terms, even in that event.
All right, so my question, now that you explained that part, is if it got assigned or sold to a same, like a childcare facility, but what if it is for profit? Is it still going to be the $1 per month rent?
I don't think it can be for profit, because the use is required to be in compliance with the deed restrictions that are on the property. And if you'll bear with me for a moment, find the use provision in here. There we go. There is a deed restriction, and the property has to be used for public community purposes that are consistent with services provided by human service agencies and consistent with the deed provision.
And what page are you on?
I'm sorry, that's under Article 7, Section 7.1. It's our page 24.
Okay.
So
24 or
I'm
25, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, it's Article 7, Section 7.1, use of demised premises.
That's in our packet, page 42. In that, in the deed, it does state what the proper use for the property.
And just to add it, of course, this has been negotiated over about 2 years, but we, at the time when we came to this, we spent quite a lot of time back and forth on this.
All right. All right, I just wanted to make sure, because, but with that being said, I know we have had numerous discussions over the years about the lease amount, and because it is for community benefit of childcare within our community, I'm all in favor of this. But you are comfortable with the way the contract is?
Yes.
And there are protections for the town in here from your viewpoint, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. All right, I'm not seeing any other hands. So it is the prerogative of the council whether we move forward or not? Is that what you're asking? Is there a prepared potential motion?
I would just do a motion to approve the lease with the one correction noted to Section 3.1D to change the construction term amount from $1 per month to the $1 per year.
I make a motion to accept the lease with the amendment to the correction of 3.1.D to reflect yearly instead of monthly.
Second, Pacino.
All right, I'm writing this down. To approve or accept the lease?
Approve.
Approve, okay. So I have a motion by Parker, seconded by Pacino. All right. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to add? No? Okay, so we will take a vote on 2025-619 TBCCA lease, 36-40 Central Avenue. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
Okay.
Bear with
Abstention?
me, I haven't been here with the other conversation.
Okay, that's okay. 7-0-1 with an abstention from Good.
Madam
I
Mayor?
think it's,
No, there's a recusal. It's
Oh, I'm
6.
sorry, and with one recusal of Rusk.
So 6.
So let me repeat this. It is 7-0-1.
No,
6.
6 to 0 to 1
Oh, my
with
good Lord,
recusal.
have mercy on me. All right,
Math.
6-0 with good abstaining with Russ recusal. Thank you. I still have it in my mind that Bordelon is here. Sorry about that. That was moved by Parker. Seconded. All right, we're moving on. 2025-620. Thank you so much for coming this evening, and thanks for the explanations. All right. All right, we are now moving on to 2025-620, CEN Community Wi-Fi Grant. This is on page 68 of our packet. There is there is a motion on page 69. Counselor Jones, would you like to take that one?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 2025-620, Send Community Wi-Fi Grant. Motion to recommend a resolution authorizing the town manager or his designee to apply for and receive grant funding in the amount of $195,556 from the Connecticut Education Network, CEN, Broadband Infrastructure Programs Community Wi-Fi Grant Program, which will allow the town and the Board of Education to install infrastructure to improve access to high-speed internet for our community members, and refer the matter to the RTM per Rule 6.5.3. So moved.
Second, Parker.
Moved by Jones, seconded by Parker. Good evening. Would you like to introduce yourself and give us a synopsis?
So I believe I've met most of you during the budget process. My name is Liz Spellman. I'm the IT director for the town of Groton. This particular grant was applied for jointly between the town and the Board of Education. I worked with Clint Kennedy closely on this. A little under half of the funding that we requested is going to the town to improve Wi-Fi access at Thrive 55 and at the library, including outdoor access, which should cover the pickleball courts. It's also going to improve Wi-Fi access at the Human Services Building, the Town Hall, and the Community Center. And we do plan to project Wi-Fi across the fields behind the Community Center. The Board of Ed is planning to bring Wi-Fi into Branford Manor to their community spaces to help underserved communities have better access to internet. There's about 300 students who are housed there, and this will go to help them significantly.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any, Counselor Pacino?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. How many public spaces are there at Branford Manor?
I believe we're going to be covering the community center area there, and then a sports area, like basketball court.
Okay, so if kids were to be doing their homework online, they'd have to go to that community center?
Yes. There may be some restrictions in place as to, coverage when it comes to that kind of housing. You can't give some units more coverage than others, so you may have to keep that restricted to certain areas, but the Board of Ed is handling that.
All right, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Counselor Jones?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Director. Under whose responsibilities, so we have some town stuff that's the Board of Education, but the Board of Education is really in a community. Who's responsible for maintenance on the Branford Manor stuff?
That will be the Board of Education.
Okay, so there's a split, so you'll have different territories that you cover?
Yes.
Okay.
So the improvements that we'll be making on the town side will tie into the town's Wi-Fi network, and the improvements at Branford Manor will be managed by the Board of Ed and the Board of Ed's network.
Okay, so if there's any maintenance, they're the ones that go in and
Yes.
and fix it, so. And where are we currently with our public Wi-Fi?
We have public Wi-Fi across a lot of the buildings in town, but it is lacking in certain areas. Our outdoor access is lacking, and we are significantly undercovered at Thrive 55 at the senior center. So this is affording us an opportunity to expand that coverage, and I have already started to look at where else we can expand coverage around town.
And it will be free for all residents or anybody that's in the
Yes.
building, so.
Yep,
Okay, all right, thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, I'm not seeing any further hands here. So let's take a vote on 2025-620 CEN Community Wi-Fi Grant. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that one's going to pass 7-0. No, 8-0 to Pete's sake. All right. Oh, my gosh. Up next,
sure of yourself, too.
2025-574, Connecticut DOT micro grant. This is in our packet on page 73. We are on, Counselor Rusk, would you like to take that one?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 2025-574 CT-DOT micro grant. I make a motion to recommend a resolution that the Town Council approve the acceptance of the Connecticut DOT Active Transportation Micro Grant in the amount of $5,000 for the purchase of bikes, helmets, and locks to encourage active transportation within Branford Manor community. So moved.
Second.
All right, moved by Russ, seconded by Good. Good evening. Would you like to introduce yourselves and give us a brief synopsis?
Brief, yes. Good evening. I'm Mark Berry, Director of Parks and Recreation. With me this evening is John Reiner and also Catherine Campbell from Branford Manor. The town of Groton was selected to receive a DOT grant from Active Transportation Micro Grant. This Active Transportation Micro Grant provides support for small active transportation projects. The goal of the program is to provide equitable, safe, accessible, and sustainable access to transportation by making conditions safer for all ages to walk, bike, and roll. The Parks and Recreation staff, in conjunction with Go Groton, developed and submitted a Connecticut DOT Active Transportation Micro Grant as part of the Get Outdoors initiative to purchase bicycle helmets and bike locks for children living in the Branford Manor community. The community will benefit from having the equipment needed to participate in active transportation and help mitigate health disparities. The grant program does not require any match. If allowed to proceed, the Go Groton team would work with Branford Manor representatives to determine the most equitable way to distribute the equipment. This grant aligns with the Parks and Recreation pillars of service of both social equity and health and wellness. And it is kind of in line with other recent initiatives that we've done, the bike rodeo that was done a month or so ago, and also the development of the bike pump track. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Catherine Campbell to talk a little bit about the impact that it will have on the Branford Manor community.
Hello. My name is Catherine Campbell. I serve as the Resident Services Coordinator at Branford Manor. I have been in my role for about 1.5 years now, and I have come to work closely with many of the families that live there, but I have worked even closer with many of the kids that live there. All of them are bright, eager, and full of potential. The Walk, Bike, Roll microgrant is more than a transportation initiative to these kids. It's a step towards equity. For many of these families, access to reliable, safe transportation is out of reach. Children are often left at home during summer and after-school hours due to their parents' work schedules. Without access to safe, affordable mobility, these children are effectively isolated from the very resources such as parks, beaches, sports facilities, and cultural areas that are readily available to others in more affluent areas. Investing in these kids is not just a community gesture, but it is imperative. Bicycles represent freedom, access, and opportunities. They provide a means for children to safely engage with their environment, stay active, and build independence. This grant would empower a population that is often overlooked, offering not just bikes and wheels, but a path towards greater inclusion and dignity. These children deserve a community outside of Branford Manor, one who also believes in their potential and invests in their future. I urge you to consider this grant not as charity, but as a necessary step towards justice and equal access.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any, Counselor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And to whomever can answer it, obviously, there are going to be children and their families who move out of Branford Manor, and those helmets and locks will go with them. We're not asking for them back. I can't imagine we would do that. Is there enough in this budget, this funds, to continually supply new residents coming in, and for how long?
No, so this is kind of a one-time thing that we're doing, so if it wasn't clear, we're going to be getting 30 bikes, bike helmets and bike locks, and we're going to work with the folks at Branford Manor on how exactly we're going to distribute those, some type of raffle or something like that, because obviously there's a much bigger need than 30 within that development there. If this goes successfully, could we apply for more grants in the future? Certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not seeing other hands, but I have a quick question. Is this just for children, or what about adults who would maybe need transportation as well?
This is just for children.
Just for children. All right, thank you. Counselor Merritt.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this, whether or not they move out of the area or not. And I think we can accommodate that sort of thing for what this is intended for.
All right. I am not seeing any more hands on, so we're going to take a vote on 2025-574 Connecticut DOT micro grant. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, 8-0. That passes. Up next, thank you so much. Up next, 2025-575, adoption of a Town of Groton Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights. This is in our packet. On page 91. And Counselor Pacino, would you like to take that one? That's on page 92.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 2025-575, adoption of the Town of Groton Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights. I motion to recommend the resolution to adopt the Town of Groton Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights.
Second.
Moved by Pacino, seconded by Rusk.
Sorry, I pulled up the wrong one. You didn't mean to pull that. Sorry, was it? One moment.
Sorry, we have a PowerPoint
Sorry, I pulled up the
presentation.
wrong one.
Ooh, okay.
All right, thank you. So again, very briefly, I just wanted to go over a little bit of the background on this and what we're asking for you for tonight. So as the agenda item spoke about the Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights. Next slide. Oh, very good. And what is Go Groton? We've come before you, both myself, Planning and Development Services, Parks and Rec, working with Groton Open Space Association, the Board of Ed, and the Children in Nature Everywhere Network. This was a grant-funded project that we got a couple of years ago, looking at how do we get kids outdoors more, really aligning with a lot of the projects that we're doing from a planning and development end, as well as a lot of the stuff that Mark and his team are working on as well as the rest of our partners. Next slide. So what is a COBOR? We love our acronyms, the Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights. And this is really just talking about experiences that we want every child to have the ability to enjoy, getting outside. We think about a lot of our childhood, we were muddy, we were taking bikes all over the place, we were doing stuff and getting outdoors. And I think there's been a disconnection with that in a lot of kids nowadays, especially with technology. And this Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights really will help us set a vision for the town's nature equity plan, which is the next piece that we're finalizing as part of that Children in Nature Network program. Next slide. in order to develop that COBOR and that nature equity plan, we wanted to hear from our youth within our community. And that's something, you know, you've seen, we've been doing a lot more outreach and engagement on a lot of the initiatives that we've been working on lately, whether it's our plan of conservation and development, the community conversations, some of the work that Mark and his team have been doing on the, you know, recreation master plans. And we went after this for this Children Outdoor Bill of Rights and the public engagement through a different variety of approaches. Next slide. We not only were able to, through grant funding, hire a part-time staff person, as well as a couple of high school interns that helped us engage with people in different communities around Groton, as well as some of the youth. Next slide. We had a number of events at the community center, at Project Oceanology, and then we also had a spring fair at Branford Manor, maybe just about a month or so ago, which was really successful. Next slide. We did a community cafe with Groton Children's First, and we also did a Connecticut Trails Day. Had really great turnout at both of those, and it was great engaging with a lot of different people. People that we don't normally see that come to a lot of our typical, you know, planning and development or Parks and Rec, you know, master planning type events. We did a whole bunch of other engagement opportunities. I'm not going to read through the whole list, but it was really great getting engagement from some of our youth and hearing some of the ideas that they have, because not to sound cliche, children are our future. Was that a song from way back when? Next slide, please. And we did a number of surveys, and we had phenomenal results on our surveys and really in the participation of our surveys. Next slide. One more. And one more. All right. So getting over 300 surveys is pretty fantastic. We're normally lucky if we get 50 responses back. So, you know, and really, we got a whole bunch of different, you know, input from people all over town, a lot of different racial diversity within our survey of the population of people that was communicating to us, which was also really great. Next slide. And we really were focusing on desires for outdoor play and also technology as a distraction and some of the things that we heard from both kids and from parents. Next slide. We also asked about some of the barriers that people have to getting outdoors and playing outdoors. Again, you know, weather, not enough time, these are things that I think impact adults as well as kids. But some of it is just some of the resources that they have available to them as well. Next slide. And through that, in a lot of these public engagement events, we also were asking both kids and adults, what are the most important things that they value to them? We also looked at Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights from a number of other communities around the country and some of the things that they focused on. And this here was our list of items that were really prioritized by the students and the youth working with us throughout the town over the last, probably year or so. We had spoken about this a number of months back. I think we came before the council back in January-ish, letting you know kind of some of the next steps for this project. And really what we're looking for tonight is for you to endorse, you know, that all children should have safe and equitable access and opportunities to these items within Groton. We're not asking for any money for this right now. This will give us access to some other grants in the future, but you know, this is really kind of a baseline standard that we want to set moving forward as part of that Get Outdoors Groton network and all the work we've been doing with Parks and Rec, the Board of Ed, Groton Open Space, and the Children in Nature Network. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Mark?
No, well, I think this is going to help our department focus more of our programming to address what we've been hearing from all the youth in Groton. And so like I said, allow us to focus our programming and craft it to try to provide opportunities that the youth have said that they don't feel like they have at this point.
And, you know, I know the council's been spending a lot of time lately talking about, you know, park space and recreation areas and bonds for that. And there's so many different types of ways we want to get kids outdoors. We want to get them playing sports, but we also want to start getting some focus back onto kind of that free play time. Just kids hanging out in the woods, building forts, sitting there, listening to a stream go by peacefully, and just kind of disconnecting a little bit from these things, which I think take a little too much time in all of our lives. So, happy to answer any questions.
Counselor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through the mayor. Thank you, Director Reiner and Mr. Berry. I just support this, but also just having had my own personal experience with working with Go Groton and leading numerous walks with kindergartners through 5th grade through our different woods and trails. I have 2 coming up in July that I'll be doing, and many of these kids have never been in the woods. We're always kind of amazed that they have never been in the woods at all, seen streams, are fascinated by birds, the trees. We have a lot of fun with them in the woods, and it's great to kind of see them get excited and jump and run, and at different ages do different things. Usually the third graders have a hard time getting them off of rocks, so. So that's just the great thing that we kind of see. And along with the kids not being in the woods, we often find adults have not also been in the woods. So for many of the adults that come along on these trips as chaperones, they also have never been on our trails in Groton. As Mr. Berry knows, we have just enormous number of trails all over the place, and they're just not accessed by many people. So I think this is a great idea, and if anything to help get the kids out into the woods, and get a little muddy is okay. So, thanks.
Counselor McBride.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this. I think it's great. I think we got to get back to that. I would love to see more kids having more fun and, just like you said, get dirty and build tree houses. But I did have, this is kind of a silly question. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but to me, climb a tree seems a little maybe dangerous, or, just not many trees in my view are climbable. There's very few that are climbable. I know we've been there when we were younger. You build tree houses, but is it really, that just seems a little off to me to have climb a tree as a goal.
We've
Safety
got a brochure
concerns
for
or-
you on that, don't we?
So actually, if you go back to that presentation,
Let me pull it back up.
yeah.
Again, I don't want to spend much time on it, but it
No,
just kind of.
well, it's funny, because that question did come up when we went to the Parks and Rec Commission. And again, not that we're looking to have kids climb every tree, and we're not going to start giving out guidance and advice, just as, so if you go to the presentation, go to the very end.
Okay.
Go one more. All right. Benefits of risky play. So I was actually anticipating this question. And, a parent of a soon-to-be 18 and 21-year-old, I think of the times where maybe I helicoptered a little too much or prevented my kids from doing things maybe that I did. Although, you think about things that have risk to them in nature do help our kids. They help them assess risks and think about how this moves forward in their lives. Critical thinking, and there was actually a really cool brochure we had that we can share around with people.
I'll send out to everybody.
Yeah, and it even was, don't go on that slippery rock, as opposed to, hey, that rock might look a little slippery. How do you want to approach that? Like, as a parent, as an adult, helping some of these kids assess these types of things. Yeah, all right, go do that type of stuff. Sometimes kids do fall and get hurt. As somebody who's had many crashes in his life on bikes and skis and other things, I didn't enjoy how that now feels as I'm in my mid-40s, but as a kid, it was a lot of fun, and I wouldn't have given up climbing any of those trees. So is there risk? Certainly, but there's risk in everything, whether it's crossing the street. I think we want to encourage kids to get out there and try to find their own barriers. That's something I think we've been doing a little bit of a disservice in society, but that's,
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you have more information than I would have. I just wondered, put your legal cap on, and do we say climb a tree, and somebody climbs a tree, and somebody gets hurt, there's a lawsuit, it's just that. Just to take it for what it's worth, but I
Yes.
love this idea. This is great. Thanks.
yeah.
Awesome.
I'm going to jump in. I'm not exactly sure, like an outdoor Bill of Rights and what this actually entails and what this means for the town. Are you saying you're going to offer programs via Parks and Rec for children to do these things. Is that what this is about? Because I'm not sure exactly how the town council is involved in children's outdoor Bill of Rights. And by us saying yes, what does that mean for a kid to ride a bicycle or spend, I mean, I'm not even sure with the part of spend time in nature during a school day. I mean, I don't know if that's.
So this is something that we've been working with the Board of Ed on as well, and really, these are just goals. It's not saying that we now have to offer programs on these things, but it's aspirational goals of things that we'd like to see offered, or that we're supportive of our youth participating in these types of items. For example, we have a library Bill of Rights that's hanging up in our Groton Public Libraries that talks about people having access to books. It's something that, it's aspirational goals. We're not asking to start changing policies or, again, not asking for money to develop some large program, breathing clean air. Again, these are just, I think, things that we all can aspire to. That's really what we're looking for.
And Mayor, just want to add that this is 100% a town type of issue, more so than some other things we do.
All right. Because I'm just curious, because I agree with all these things. I just don't know, by us saying yes to it, how is it going to be implemented? Or I don't actually understand the process after it leaves us saying yes and how it's going to be used after that, so. Counselor Merritt?
I'm kind of in favor of all of this, and I look at the items listed and I'm saying, well, some of them may not fit with the council's procedures. If we accept them, are we liable? If we don't, then are we liable to prevent them? Like climb a tree, for example. I think we should accept it and let it go.
All right, thank you. Counselor Jones, for your second time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just answer some of the things that have come up. Over the last year, we've done over 700 kids from the school, and they've all been done during the school day. So they're thrilled to get out from the classrooms. Councilor McBride's, I think it's more climb a rock than climb a tree. These kids just can't keep themselves off of the rocks, so. And I've watched a lot of kids fall down and slip and slide and bounce, and they just get up, and sometimes they, we put a Band-Aid on it and off they go. So it seems pretty safe for everything that I've seen of the programs that I've been involved with. So.
All right, seeing no other hands, we're going to take a vote. On 2025-575, adoption of a Town of Groton's Children Outdoor Bill of Rights. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that passes 8-0 to 0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Up next, 2025-595, synthetic natural turf discussion. This is in our packet on page 94. Counselor Merritt, would you like to take that on page 94, the motion?
2025-595 synthetic natural turf discussion. Motion to recommend a resolution approving the installation of synthetic turf on the stadium field at Fitch High School as part of Phase 1 renovations.
You so move.
I do.
Second, Pacino.
Moved by Merritt, seconded by Pacino. Hello. Are we going to have a presentation?
Yes.
Oh, first introduce yourselves, I'm sorry.
A brief one. Good evening, Mark Berry, Director of Parks and Recreation. To my left is Chad Frost from Kenton Frost. So the issue this evening is, will the council accept the Athletic Fields Task Force recommendation of a synthetic field at the Fitch High School Stadium Field as part of Phase 1 for the bond which the council will be voting on in the near future. This process has gone on for, well, close to 30 years. It's been identified there's been a shortage of athletic fields, and we're finally in a position where the town is taking the next step to try to address those issues. Kent & Frost has analyzed considerably the various needs identified, quantified those, and come up with a plan to address those athletic field shortages. The decision was made to break it up into 4 phases, and this first phase addresses some of the issues at the Fitch High School. There's been quite a bit of public input, feedback, some presentations, and we've also been in front of the council with a preliminary discussion about durability, use and performance, health and safety concerns, maintenance and daily operation analysis, and a cost comparison to both synthetic and natural turf. The council has also received a study that Kent & Frost initiated to look at the effects of microplastics from and they studied the Fitch Middle School synthetic field. And so at this point, we're going to turn it over to Chad to do a brief presentation and answer any questions that the council may have.
Perfect. Good evening, everyone. Chad Frost again. Happy to be here. I will try to make this brief and run through kind of the quick recap. The few slides that were in your packet, the next slide is the quick recap of kind of the process. We first presented the master plan in a public meeting back in September of last year. We then received feedback basically through the end of the year from the public on that, both in person and then quite a bit of online public feedback as well. The Athletic Fields Task Force took that feedback in, and towards the end of last year, November, December timeframe, in their monthly meetings, that's when they had made the decision based on the feedback to go the synthetic route, definitely for Fitch. And then also one of the changes at that time was to talk about taking both of the fields at Claude-Chester and doing both of those in synthetic turf as well. That's not really necessarily a topic for tonight because we're really worried about phase 1 at the high school, but just wanted to let you know that's when those decisions were made, was in their November, December timeframe. We then had, based on the feedback we got from the public and from the task force, we then did some design development. We had that public meeting January 16th. We were in front of you to present that feedback and findings on the January 28th meeting. At that meeting was when you asked us about some phasing possibilities and recommendations. During the task force February meeting is when they came up with those initial phasing. And we went through that, had some separate meetings with Board of Ed and with the athletic department to figure that out. Also, I should mention during March, both of the March meetings for Board of Ed, we were presenting both the plan and the phasing to Board of Ed and got their approval. And then we kind of had the final phasing recommendations in April 17th. And then I'll note that, was it last week? Yes, last week we had the most recent Athletic Fields Task Force meeting, and they reconfirmed all of those decisions that have been made to date. The next slide, really quickly just recapping over the phasing recommendations, just so that everybody's clear on these. The first phase, and initially you were asking for 4 phases. We've kind of broke it into 5 or 4-point A and B, if you want to call it that. But the first phase really focuses on Fitch and the field, the main championship field down there. New field, which we are recommending synthetic turf, and we can talk about that in a second. The new track, 8-lane track as opposed to the 6-lane that's there, all new bleachers, grandstands, press box, lighting. Public restrooms are included in that first phase. I want to make that clear because there's been some questions about that. So public restrooms, concessions, ticketing, and a storage facility building. In addition, we have to make some accessibility. We're down low at the field, and as we cut into the hill to make room for future phases, we have to put a new road to get up to the parking lot. So that's all part of that first phase. Second phase, the task force and our small working group within the athletic department and Board of Ed has decided that Claude Chester is probably the best project to go as part of Phase 2 for a couple of reasons. One is that the public has really, public meaning the youth public, youth sports have really been demanding for those 30 years more fields available to them, right? And we know we have a massive problem at Fitch. The first phase starts to solve that. But we really felt that it was important to remedy some of the public, the youth need for fields as well. And so that's where Claude Chester came in to help solve some of that problem. Additionally, from a funding perspective, we think it's also wise to have Claude Chester in there too, because there's some grants that we could go after. If the bond passes in November for Fitch, then it's possible we could leverage that money as a match type money to go after some grants that could possibly then fund parts of or the majority of Claude Chester, right? So by tag teaming those two together and having that second, it opens up some possibilities to be able to not put it all on the taxpayers and leverage that first bond for some money for Claude Chester. So that was part of why we wanted to move that into Phase 2. And then Phase 3 was basically, I'll say, the majority of the rest of Fitch. So it's the field house, which is in dire need of renovations, and it's the second synthetic field down the hill from the major one that's, or the primary field. And then I'll also note that there's the upper restrooms area. So there's an area up above the tennis courts by the athletic field entrance, by the gym entrance, that we have in the master plan proposed some restrooms up there that serve baseball, tennis, and any outdoor activities that are happening up there. So, and improves all the ADA parking. Right now, there's spaces there that are defined ADA, but they don't necessarily meet any of the requirements. So all those get fixed in Phase 3. Then Phase 4 was Sutton Park doing the baseball and softball field, and Phase 4, oh, I should have mentioned, sorry. Part of Phase 2 is the softball field at Groton Middle School, doing some minor renovations to that. Right now, that field is fairly new, but it doesn't quite meet the needs for the high school to be able to use it. We need some additional things done to it that are fairly minor, so we put a little bit of money in Phase 2 to be able to cover that. What that then allows us to do is take the softball field that was in the master plan for Fitch and push that to Phase 5 to see if it's really needed by that point. We're seeing some changes happening within the demographics of softball regionally, not just within Groton. And there's a lot of middle school teams that are no longer playing softball through the middle school, they're playing at a youth level. And so that changes the field need dynamic. So it's possible that in 3, 4, 5 years, we could have high school playing there and the middle school would be playing potentially later in the day. So that's why we've pushed that to possible.
Let me just add in, officially, there are only 4 phases. The 5th has been put into the 4th. So there are 4 phases, and unless you change something, it's at the 4th phase you'll decide on what was originally listed as 5th phase.
Okay. Question on that? Okay. Next slide, just
I
graphically.
do have a quick question.
Yeah.
But the council here gave their recommendation of 4 phases. That was what was approved by the council.
So then we'll combine that 5th phase into the 4th phase and basically what we're saying is we'll make that decision down the road, right?
Okay.
That right now, it's our recommendation from the task force that could be, it might not be needed, so that's why we were labeling it as Phase 5. We can, for the intents of the council, keep it as Phase 4 and make that decision when we get to making a bond for Phase 4.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is just a graphic representation of how that all works, just so that you can see where Phase 1 is and what it includes at Fitch. Then obviously Claude Chester is all of Phase 2. 3, as I mentioned, the field down below, as well as the ADA and restrooms. And then we'll just blend 4 and 5 together into a combined color going forward. And then if we go to the next slide, so that's the phasing that between the council, the task force, and Board of Ed that has been developed, and just wanted you to see what's in it and not in it. Environmental concerns, one of the things listening to some of the council deliberations on this, we wanted to talk about Two big things. One were heavy metals and runoff from the turf field or from a natural grass field into the surrounding area. We're referencing up there two studies. The study on the left is our partner, Castle Booze, had done this at a field at Northwest Catholic that they just completed in the last year, where they did testing off of what was previously a natural grass field. And they did all the environmental testing coming off of it, testing the runoff. They found, and then they completed a synthetic turf field and did the similar testing. What they found was that the heavy metals coming off the field were higher when it was natural grass than when it went to synthetic turf. So the runoff was actually better environmentally, considering heavy metals, pesticides, herbicides, and nitrogen coming off natural grass was worse than off of synthetic turf. So from an environmental perspective, we consider that a win, that it's cleaner stormwater coming out. Then on the other side of that slide is the microplastics test results. So we got a lot of questions about microplastics, and I know as a council you had made some decisions on reducing the amount of plastics and trying to do all that, which is all great things. And so we wanted to look at what is the impact of putting synthetic turf on a field. Just to zoom in, you can go to the next slide if you would like. The map up there, we tested in 4 locations. So the field itself, the existing synthetic turf field, all of the rain that falls on that field drains through the bottom of that field. Nothing runs off the surface. Everything flows through the bottom. There's several layers of filtration as well as sand and everything that goes through there. It goes into collection pipes, which are plastic, and then it all funnels out through one point at the bottom. We tested the stormwater coming out of that during the middle of a rain event, right? So we had to wait all winter. We couldn't do it while the ground was frozen. We didn't want anything frozen and suspended within the field. As things thawed, we waited for the right rain so that we had enough rain to be washing stuff through, and that there was water coming out of the bottom of that field. So we opened up the manhole cover there, and we sampled water coming, the direct source coming out of the field. We then went halfway down the treatment train, so there's quite a bit of stormwater treatment within the Groton Middle School. About halfway through, it comes out into a basin, and we sampled the water there to see what we'd get there. I'll note that we also took a sample of the tap water inside the building just to see what we might get. And then our last sampling location, the number 4, is down the stream in Fort Hill Brook. We intentionally located it where that is at the Public Works location down there, the pump houses and sewer station. There's a couple of locations there that are like water quality sampling areas, right? They're labeled, they've got signs. So that was a designated place that we could go sample and get access right down to the brook and be repeatable in the future if need be. We also intentionally chose it that far downstream because Grosso Tech's new synthetic field is also upstream of that, right? So as you can see in the diagram, we have the synthetic turf field at the middle school and the synthetic turf field at Grosso Tech. Both of those eventually drain all the way down into Fort Hill Brook, and then we sampled downstream of both of those to be able to capture as much as we could. What we found in the results, the direct outfall of the field, it was 6.4 microplastics per liter. So that's how, right now, the best practices is for managing that, at 6.4 MP per liter. Halfway through the treatment train, so as we're going down the stream, we've gone through some different filtrations, we've gone through an infiltrator, it's now going out of the stream, out of the pipe into a basin. We sampled there. What was very interesting is it showed that the treatment is working, right? Our concentration levels were down to 2.6 microplastics per liter. And then when we got all the way down to Fort Hill Brook, downstream of both of those synthetic turf fields, and somewhat shocking to me, Fort Hill Brook showed 0. There was no testing whatsoever, no microplastics tracing within there, and they test down to a very small particle size for sampling. And then we're happy to report that the middle school tap water also had 0 microplastics per liter. What does that mean? Is 6 good or bad or horrible? So down below in that, we had some numbers just to help you understand kind of what those concentrations are. We did send our results off to some professors at UConn Avery Point who study microplastics within the sound and within the environment. They shared with us a couple of their studies that basically the sound, depending on where you sample it, is anywhere from a 1 to a 3 microplastics per liter is kind of the status quo right now of the sound. So kind of our halfway through the treatment train, we've got a water quality that's equal to the current status of the sound. So that's, a 3 gives you the level of the sound. Now, other things that we're used to, concentration of microplastics in a single bottle of disposable water. So if you go to the store and buy your little bottle of plastic water, that has 30,000 microplastics per liter of concentration of microplastics in that bottle of water, right? If you do a single load of laundry, one load of laundry has anywhere from 70,000 to 270,000 microplastics per liter. So the concentrations of those microplastics significantly higher out of a bottle of water and definitely out of a load of laundry than what's coming off of the field currently at the middle school. So although we did find some, and it is true, or we can show that it is being treated and being removed as it goes through the treatment train, and we eventually get down to 0 of a concentration by the time we hit Fort Hill Brook. There is something there, but it's a very, very small amount of microplastics coming off of that field. So we were relieved to see that, because honestly, we had never been able to find a study. We've talked to a lot of different manufacturers. Nobody's ever done this to look at it. I don't know if they're afraid to look, or just nobody had asked before. We're kind of at that point now culturally where we now know to look for this. And so we're paying attention to it. So we were very happy to find those results, that there's not having a negative environmental impact. The other thing I want to point out, because it was asked quite a bit, is PFAS contamination coming off of the field and the plastic. That was a problem. There was definitely a problem where PFAS was used in every kind of plastic manufacturing there was. About 5 years ago, the industry transferred away from, they went to a PFAS-free fiber to be able to start making the turf. And they were all excited and promoted that. And then they found when they went and tested the actual field, there was still PFAS in the field. And they didn't understand why until it became apparent that there's a lubricant that they put in the machinery when they take the plastic and extrude it into the actual filament. And that lubricant had PFAS in it. So they've now removed that lubricant to not have PFAS in that anymore. So you can get true PFAS-free fields. And what I would recommend is in our documentation when we go through construction drawings is that we specified PFAS-free fields and we have it tested at the factory before we take delivery, right? So we can actually, after they've manufactured it, we can test it and prove that it's PFAS-free before we allow it to even be shipped here. So we don't have to wait for it to get here, find out it doesn't meet, and then have to ship it back. We just deny it before it's ever shipped. So we can handle the PFAS-free. The green infill, I think you're all familiar with it because the middle school field does have what's called the green infill. It's a cork fill. It's a natural fiber as opposed to the crumb rubber. Crumb rubber still hasn't been shown or documented to have any sort of really bad, personal health or even environmental health concerns. But because we can use a natural product, and the council in the past has wanted to do that, we're recommending that again here. And then the one concern, and I put it in environmental, and it'll apply to the next slide, which is kind of player safety as well, is the heat, right? We know that the fields get hot. There are a few things that we can do to reduce the heat gain of the fields. We can put some fill in there that actually hold water and then release it during the day so it evaporates kind of naturally and that cools the turf. A lot of times when we do that, we actually put a small irrigation system on the field as well. So you water it kind of either at night or in the morning, and then that evaporates off and cools the field. So it's not as hot. I will say in New England, we're aware of it. It's an issue that we want coaches and athletic directors and trainers to be aware of. Every player is aware of it. Every coach is aware of it because they play on fields like this all the time. But we don't have a lot of hot days, unlike today. But we don't have a hot days when sports are really played. The school seasons are over at this point by the time we get into the heat of the summer. So it's an issue that we are aware of, but it's not a huge issue locally here in Connecticut. And if you want to go to the next one. Safety concerns from a player perspective. What I would say is that the synthetic turf fields have to go through significantly more testing, both from when they're done and then throughout their lifetime than a natural grass field ever does, right? So we can ensure that player's safety, both from an impact perspective, from a plant your foot and twist, from a lower extremity perspective, we can make sure that that field meets and exceeds all of the safety requirements. We can't do the same for natural grass fields because they grow and they're a natural product, and we sink and tend to not fill those holes back in again. Along those lines, synthetic turf remains a consistent surface, which is really important. I was talking to the athletic director just last week, and he was having issues because the football team is now starting their summer training. They're training on the practice area, which is next to the football field in the high school. That area is used for all the throwing events, so all the disc and javelin and all that sort of stuff. And the amount of divots and bumps and lumps and bumps in that practice area is really difficult for them to practice in, and is actually pretty dangerous because of uneven surfaces to be able to be planting your feet and doing all your moves. A synthetic turf field, we don't have those issues, so it is actually a safer surface most of the time for players to be on. We did go through and ask for data, for injury data. There isn't any data that's been kept long-term to be able to compare good or bad. The athletic director's opinion is that he feels that there's a lot less injuries since switching to the new synthetic turf field. He hasn't had as many lower extremities with the turf going in versus when they were playing on grass. I'll also just note, we've talked about this several times, Connecticut Public Health has no restrictions on synthetic turf from a health safety perspective of player safety. They have a lot of restrictions on what we can put on natural grass fields. So from a player safety perspective, that says something. And then I'll just kind of end on the player safety is that there hasn't been a statistically valid study that links a synthetic turf field to player injury to date that we're aware of. There's a lot of information that gets put out there, and there's a lot of people that have collected some information and then announce it to the world, and it looks kind of shocking. One that was shared with me recently was a doctor's office that is associated, does athletic training for high school, and they did a study that reported that you're 85% more likely to get injured playing on synthetic turf than on natural grass. And that data was because they went and looked at all the injuries that they had over a given year, and they said, oh, there's this many more on this surface than there are on this surface. What they didn't take into account is just like here, 90% of our athletes play on a synthetic turf surface, and only a few play on natural grass. And so just because of sheer numbers, you're gonna have more injuries on one surface than the other because you're having a lot more use. So if you factor in the use factor, the injury, it's nowhere near 85%. Normally it's about even, if not a little bit lower on a synthetic turf versus a natural grass. So there's been some things like that get put out there. The numbers look shocking. As a parent who has kids that play on those fields, I always pay attention because it is alarming when you see some of those headlines, but there hasn't been a statistically valid survey that's really looked at it independently to have any sort of link of causation. So I just want to put that out there. And then I think one more slide, if I remember. Yeah. Just for your information, right? These are all the schools in ECC and what fields they have currently. All the fields on the left, or all the schools on the left, have synthetic turf fields. I've got Bacon Academy kind of straddling the line because they're right now in the process of going from a natural grass field to a synthetic turf field. They're hoping to have that in next year. And then Groton, along with a few small schools in the ECC, right? St. Bernard's, Wheeler, and those are schools that have to normally combine with other schools to put sport teams out there. They're not very large schools or school districts. Lyman and Tortolet are the only schools in the ECC that don't have synthetic turf. So as far as player safety, environmental concerns, all these other schools have felt it's safe enough. And I'll note that several of those schools on the list are in the process of putting in their second round of turf, right? They're taking out the first phase that was done 10, 12, 15 years ago and putting in their second round. So it's a very safe surface. Our athletes are playing on the surface everywhere they go. And so this is not like a unique or novel thing to do at Fitch. And with that, I was trying to be brief, sorry. I'm happy to take any questions.
Counselor Merritt? Oh, wait, before you start, I had made a note that during this motion, we should only discuss the motion that's on the floor. It's regarding phase one only. And for synthetic or natural, and this is related to the Fitch football field, track field stadium, and the adjacent multi-field field, so, multi-use field. I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilor Mayor.
That being said, I have kind of a personal attachment to this, and I'm just kind of dismayed that the field house wasn't included in Phase 1 instead of Phase 3, but I'll be in favor of this motion because we've been kicking this around for several years. I've spoken to Mike Ellis, who was on the original task force. He's in favor of it, and I just think it's a good idea that we get moving on this, start putting the shovel in the ground and get this going.
Thank you. Counselor Good?
Also, it's, I would say it's kind of a misnomer to call an athletic field natural with, what they need to spray to keep it playable on there. And also, it's my understanding that the marching band can't compete at Fitch because of so-called natural turf and only artificial turf.
They do compete there. They want to, they've been invited to host tournaments, and they can't host tournaments there because of the natural grass. They can only host with the synthetic turf field, so that's correct.
That weighs heavy on me. I appreciate that. Thank you.
That's it.
Thanks, Counselor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Bear, Mr. Frost, do we currently use heavy metals, pesticide, and herbicides on our existing fields? Do we have those chemicals being?
We do.
Do we?
Yeah, in order to keep them at a playable level, given the amount of use, we have to do that.
So that's there. I guess I'll state personally the unfavorable opinion here that I'm against synthetic fields. You may already know that. So today we learned in the presentation for the gill fish, 94.5% of plastic isn't recycled and in the world. And as a community, we reached out, we set a standard a number of years ago on different items of plastic that we took out, plastic bags and cups and stuff like that, which I noticed almost immediately living on a street that collected a lot of that stuff and it kind of disappeared. So I'm just wondering why we're a community that has committed itself to reducing plastic, we want to suddenly start covering acres of our land with plastic on them.
Well, it comes down to the right material for the right use in the right place. And I agree that at a high level, it can seem contradictory, right? But I think the goal of removing as much plastic, especially trash plastic that ends up along the roadsides, is something we should definitely be doing. And we should be using, reducing the amount of plastic consumption and use wherever we can and focusing on using it where we really need to. I would say things like the carpet in this room. That is 100% synthetic fiber. That is made out of the exact same thing that the synthetic turf is that will be outside. Is it recyclable? When we built this building or the new school or any other building, have we said we are not allowed to put carpet in anymore? And if we're not allowed to put carpet in anymore, are we going to put terrazzo tile, which is also a synthetic plastic that has difficult to recycle? So there's a lot of those things that are very difficult, but are yet still needed at this point. Synthetic turf did have a recycling problem, same with carpet. I actually tried looking up some recycling areas for just carpet out of our houses and rugs, because I know when I've done renovations in town, I take it to the dump, to the landfill, and it disappears, but it actually just goes to a dump. It doesn't go into a recycling stream, it doesn't go anywhere else, it just goes to a landfill, because it is still difficult, even your interior carpet. The synthetic turf industry is aware of it. They've made strides, as I think I mentioned to you before when I've been here. The very first recycling plant for synthetic turf was just built down in the southeast of the United States. And so we're working on trying to be able to make that a new industry standard. In 10 years, 15 years, when this field needs to be changed out, hopefully that technology is fully available and we can just make it part of the spec that the old one goes and gets recycled or is turned into a different product. And then its lifespan continues, right? And none of us want to see it just disposed of and going into a landfill.
Have you built into the cost that you did for this phase one, or a recycling amount of money that's been put aside for recycling?
No.
So it's a cost that will come at some point, 10 to 15
Yeah,
years from now?
in the numbers that we presented to you last time, that showed the comparison of natural versus synthetic turf field costs, that analysis did have a recycling fee and a full replacement fee built into that analysis, right? If you recall, it was effectively double the price for day one install, but you got twice as much use out of it at the end. But that analysis did include both the replacement cost and the disposal cost. But not right now. Right now, all we're trying to do is fund the install.
installation. So fields wear,
Yep.
you know, the pieces wear off, they break off. From what you said with your numbers, all of that runoff ends up going down a drain and going somewhere. Have they found in that first step all the fibers that were on that field? Are they collected there? Is there sort of a big pile of them?
No,
Or
so what's really interesting is, so the way the field drains is it drains vertically through the field. Nothing drains off the side. So any of those fibers that might break at the top get caught into the mesh of the carpet itself. They're not shed off the side. No water like runs off the side and runs down the surface, if anything. And because all the water is draining through the pancake, if you will, of that field construction, there's the surface, there's a pad, there's a filtration layer, there's sand, there's gravel, there's like 18 inches of filtration there. So that by the time the water comes out the bottom, it's just pure clean water coming out the bottom with very little contaminants. So there's definitely the filament are not making
So
it through
it
that.
basically has its own filter system.
100%.
By doing that.
Yeah.
So, I looked up, because I know in the news, we heard a lot about the National Football League.
Yep.
And the Players Association is becoming out fairly strong against turf fields, mostly for increased injury rates, which they did to knee, foot, ankle, surface temperatures, and just the stuff that comes off of that. Player preference, 92% of the NFL players want it, and potential health concerns. Major League Soccer has also done the same thing. They're not quite as to that degree, but they also are talking about it. I'm just trying to put the two together, why our major sports leagues, and baseball's sort of in the middle, why our major sports leagues are moving away from turf, and everybody else, synthetic, and everybody else is moving towards it.
Excellent question. But it's also like when your 16-year-old gets his license, you don't buy him a Lamborghini, right? So professional athletes are at a different level and typically a different age, and their bodies have gone through years and decades of very physical abuse. So by the time they're a professional athlete, they have just gone through the ringer, right? And so, yes, professional athletes, football players especially, prefer the grass. I'd say lots of people prefer to play on grass. It's a great surface to play on. If I'm going for a picnic, I want to be on grass. But we can't afford to maintain our fields like a professional football team, right? And the professional football teams can't even afford to maintain their fields. Most of the fields have gone to synthetic turf. The players want to say, oh, we don't like it, we'd prefer to go back, right? And the injury rates and things like that probably do exist. But again, you're comparing, an athlete who's probably in their 20s and 30s, who's gone through 2 decades or more of very vigorous athletic training, put their body at the very limits all the time. They are susceptible to a lot more injuries than most of us. For the average youth athlete, that's not even an issue, right? It's 2 totally different kind of leagues. I will say I have heard from a few people, my generation and older, that when they have the pickup games and stuff like that, yes, they prefer to play on grass. This might allow that to happen, right? If we can put all of our youth sports on the fields and get all that use, then Pequannock Plains opens up to some of the older crowd to be able to use the natural grass a little bit more. But from a use perspective, we just can't match it, and we definitely can't afford to maintain it at the level of a professional football stadium.
Okay, all right, thank you. You haven't really convinced me to change my mind,
No.
and we also, eat the equivalent of a credit card worth of plastic every week. We eat 5 grams of plastic a week just in our water, in those bottles that, I mean, maybe we should drink the water coming out of the bottom of the field. as
That's what I
opposed
thought too.
Than the water in the bottles, but
Yep.
it seems to be a lot cleaner, like
It
to
is.
an enormous degree.
Yeah.
But, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On one of your environmental concern pages here with the diagram, you have the halfway through water treatment is 2.6 per liter, microplastics per liter.
Yep.
What happens to that? Do you collect it? Do you recycle it? What do you do with that? I mean,
So there is a treatment train that we call it, that the stormwater is going through, right? And so it's going through, in some cases, some mechanical separators and filtrations, and those are like catch basins, and those do get sucked out, and that is disposed of. And then in other cases, underneath the parking lot along the front of the school there is a very large infiltration chamber. And so the water that goes in there sits there and settles out, and so the plastics, the heavy metals, the oil from the car, the tires wear, and all that sort of stuff are settling into the bottom of that basin, and the clean water is then flowing out through it. So it's, I'll say for the most part, it's staying within that infiltration basin.
oh, fantastic. And my second thing is, I was dumbfounded with the single-load laundry microplastics. And I thank you very much. Now I have an excuse not to do laundry. And other than that, I am 100% on board with what you want to do. Thank you.
Counselor Rusk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the presentation and all the information. A lot of my questions have already been answered by fellow counselors' questions, but I'm going to ask a few. First of all, to the mayor, you mentioned that we're talking about the athletic field at the high school, but I thought you also said on the practice fields.
There is a field right next to a multi-use field.
And is that part of phase one?
Can we go back to that?
Oh, okay. I see where you're talking about. And so we are looking at synthetic turf for both of those fields.
No, that's, I'll correct that. So the synthetic turf at the football field, that's what we'll call it, and then the field right next to that, adjacent to that, will still be a natural grass practice area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
What is the cost difference between a natural, if we did it with natural grass versus synthetic?
Yep.
What are the cost differences?
You save about $500,000.
Okay. I think I've said this from the beginning. I will support the field being done in AstroTurf or in synthetic turf. If it's my choice later, I have a hard time with some of the other practice fields being done. But for this, I think that the use justifies the plastic use. Although that is hard to say. Wow. That came out. So the filter system, thank you for the description of that. When this all comes out, does that whole filter system have to come out as well? And then what happens to all of that?
Excellent question. So the short answer is no. When it's time to replace the carpet, it's literally like replacing the carpet. You roll up that surface, and hopefully we recycle it. And then in some cases, the fibers or the infill can be put through a cleaner and reused. Because we're using a natural surface, we'll have to compost that and get rid of it and put new natural filler back in there. But it's just that surface carpet layer. All the sand and gravel and the full base material, all that stays in place. That's why it's a lot less expensive to do the replacement down the road, because all of that infrastructure stays in place, and it's just the carpet being taken off and replaced.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Counselor McBride.
Thank you. Most of my questions have been answered, so thank you for the thorough presentation. It was very beneficial, knowledgeable for me. I know you mentioned not to talk about phases, but these phases are different than what I thought approved, so this isn't, we're not moving forward with what they presented for phases, right? That was just,
The motion on the floor is to recommend a resolution approving the installation of synthetic turf on the stadium field at Fitch High School as part of the Phase 1
Okay, so
renovation. So we're
when this
only
goes-
talking about Phase 1.
so when it goes to, I guess then my question would be.
Phase 2 will be decided in the future.
Yeah, I guess that's why I'm wondering why it was presented tonight in a different format. But anyway, I guess my question then is timing. Well, first off, how, in 3 or 4 years, how much advancement happens with synthetic fields in terms of improvements?
Actually, quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
I'm fairly astounded on how far they almost advance year to year, both in the fiber, how the fiber is manufactured, lessons learned as they look at what causes it to break, different kind of infills, ways of cooling it down. So it's advancing, on a yearly basis.
Okay, so I guess my question then is maybe through the mayor to town manager Burke, does this need to be decided for the bond offering? Because, some people may oppose this, in my opinion, if the council approves this as a synthetic field, and therefore causing some of the votes to not be cast in favor of it, when, in my opinion, the decision doesn't need to be made right now, because we're just presenting a bonding of a dollar amount, not of specifics of the field.
Technically, no. However, you're going to put out all the information before the bond issuance for the referendum, and people are going to ask. People are going to want to know what kind of use gets out of it, I think. So
And that would-
I think people are going to want to know this in advance.
And I understand the desire to need that, but when does that decision need to be made?
So-
It may not be, maybe a different council that makes that decision.
From a true construction standpoint, right? So the task force wanted to make that decision so that from a cost perspective, it's covered, right? So the number that we gave you guys to approve to go through the bond process covers the synthetic turf because we know it's more expensive on the install. So that number is covered. From a sequence perspective, if the bond was to pass in November, then the real construction drawing starts work, in December, January timeframe. That real decision as to what the real material is probably happens, early next year or, into the spring, is when we really get into specifying what that real surface is and exactly the makeup of the synthetic fiber or a natural fiber.
Okay, I just wondering, because based on what you said, it gets better and better every year. So a year or two, you're going to have more information. It's going to be maybe easier to make a better informed decision if the synthetic's much better in a year.
I don't see the synthetic changing enough to change people's minds if they like synthetic or not, right? At this
Okay,
point, I
that's fair.
think that decision is something that can be made, and then it's really a matter of going forward with the process. I think from a use perspective, right? The high school has a grass field. It literally gets used less than 20 times a year because it can't sustain the use. If all you do is put back a natural turf field, you have not gained anything as far as usability and playability for fields in the town, because you have one, right? And so if it was a natural grass field that's brand new, and instead of spending whatever it is, 14 million, you spent 13.5, the use factor you're not going to get out of that field because you won't be able to practice on it all the time. You'll have to save it really for games and for major events. And so that's why the task force really said, from the use perspective, it really needed to be synthetic.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Looks like everybody's done their due diligence, and I'll support this. I kind of side with Councilor Russ that makes a lot of sense for this. You're very convincing on this particular use for this phase, makes a lot of sense. So thank you for the presentation.
Counselor Jones for your second time?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So on the field that we have at the middle school, is that the kind of field you're talking about that has the layer and it has the filtration system underneath it? So if you get 10, you're saying 10 to 15 years on that kind of a field in use, how long does the filter system, does it eventually fill up with filaments and it just be like a carbon filter in a sink kind of thing?
We haven't had a field that's been in place, I'll say, longer than 30 years to really know, would be my first statement. Second, there's filter fabric that goes underneath the carpet and separates the gravel to keep all the fines and keep that gravel from collecting and infilling with sedimentation that would then not let it flow through anymore. So we haven't seen any of that material go through that filter fabric layer. So really, I can't imagine that we'd need to replace the gravel anytime.
So it's the turf
So
and
turf-
the filter underneath it that gets replaced, and that's where all of the filaments and all that kind of stuff.
Correct.
Have there been any studies of, it takes a rain to bring that stuff down into the filter, so, it's not raining at the moment. Stuff that is broken off, does wind tend to blow it off into surrounding areas?
We haven't seen the wind, again, hurricane, sure. Normal, average storms, no. We do see it travels home with players, right? So it gets in the shoe as they're running, as it gets kicked up, it might fall in the shoe and in the sock. And then most kids now know enough that they're taking their shoes off and kind of emptying them off and putting their slides on as they go home. But that's where you will see it leaving the field, is if it's in somebody's shoe or equipment bag.
So it does move out into the neighborhoods and go to the
I mean,
houses.
I've seen it in my mudroom. I have not seen it, 10 feet into the parking lot or even 5 feet off the field, right? It's not migrating on the surface. It just happens to be that, just like if they were playing on grass and they were covered in mud, that's going to end up in my mudroom also.
One of the concerns with water and plastic is that the plastic leaches into the water, and you talked about a cooling system where you spray water on the field and let it evaporate. So are some of the chemicals from that plastic going into that evaporating water and the kids are running around breathing that stuff?
Haven't seen it yet, would be my answer. No. Yeah, I haven't seen a study that can prove that it's doing that to any degree. Whether it's the heat, we've heard some people think that the heat does it and it's causing a release. And we haven't seen any correlation to that, to player health or safety at all.
I mean, we do hear, you do anecdotally read a lot about.
You do, but again,
putting
some
hot
of those.
liquids in cups and plastic and all that kind of stuff.
Right,
so.
right, and there, especially with fields, there was a soccer coach from like Washington State that, had coached for 20 years, and she said, man, all these players seem to have cancer, and she put out a study to, just an email, anybody that has played soccer that has cancer, send me, and she got a lot of replies, and it looked really horrible, to the point to where the State Board of Health got involved and said, wow, this looks shocking. But then when you statistically validate it and you look across all the averages, it just turns into just lower than average rates of cancer and things like that. It wasn't a causation. It wasn't because they were a goalie that was sliding in it or playing a certain position or something like that. So there's reports. It looks frightening when you first see it. Normally, the health departments have stepped in and studied it, and so far, all of those have proven that there is no causation. And it's like anything with toxicity. I'm not a toxic expert by any stretch, but we work with LEPs doing remediation on sites and things like that. And toxicity, all of the things that we touch have toxic chemicals in them, right? It only becomes toxic to us if there's a certain amount of exposure and ingestion and things like that. And we're not at that level. Or haven't been at the level with any of these types of fields, right? And it's the same chemical that might be in the seat you're sitting in that has all sorts of horrible names of chemicals in there, but unless you're eating it all the time, it really doesn't do anything to you. So that's my uneducated LEP synopsis.
Right. Thank you for your full and complete answers to our questions.
Councilor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just saw a study the other day, and I thought it was humorous. The study was in the summer months. There's this arc of shark attacks. Same arc, same summer months. There's this arc of ice cream sales. Can you say that ice cream sales cause shark attacks? It looks there. But I understand what you're getting at, and not everything is on the same level. I mean, what you were just talking about, the cancel thing, and it doesn't work out. But yeah, there's two arcs. They're identical, but one doesn't cause the other. That's my only thing I'm going to say.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Councilor Good.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one more question about maintenance. There's some kind of rake that picks it up. Now, I know the middle school is using that same piece of equipment will be used at the high school, so
That's our desire.
There's no issue with having to buy more. It will fit and all that good stuff.
That's the desire, is to use a similar maintenance equipment to be able to take what we already have and use it for the field.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, I waited till the end. I will support the Athletic Field Task Force recommendation. I've been doing this for many years about the athletic fields. I know the concerns of conservationists, and I also researched Montville, and Montville had done very in-depth as well. And listening to you, watching what Montville research has showed, it debunks a lot of the issues. I also had heard the same thing, that there were banned tournaments, or are only allowed at Fitch if they have synthetic. They can't do the tournaments. We've heard from the community, which also had an overwhelmingly yes response. I was at the September 2024 meeting where you did a presentation, and there were many people there who were like, what do you need me to do? Tell me what to do, you know? So they were very much in support. But I would like to make an amendment to the motion on the floor to add that the fields would be PFAS-free fields. Because I think that is very important. So the amendment by Franca, seconded by Good. Because those do have serious consequences. All right, I'm not seeing any other hands, so first we'll take a vote on the amendment for PFAS-free fields with the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that passes 8-0. Now we're going to pass the motion with the amendment altogether. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? So that passes 7-1-0. With Jones opposed. Thank you for the very in-depth presentation. Appreciate it.
Madam Mayor, 5-minute recess, please.
Okay, it is, I can't even see the time up there, and it's not on my.
8:54.
8:54. We're going to take about a 10-minute break.
5.
And we'll be back. Thank you. Okay, it is 9:07. We are back from recess. The next item is 2025-618 Economic Assistance Fund Reward 1002, Route 12. On this item, I'm going to be recusing myself due to a possible conflict due to litigation. At this time, the council should select a pro tem mayor, and as normal process, we will open up for nominations of who should be the pro tem. Counselor Rusk.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion for Counselor Parker to serve as Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Second.
Anybody else have a name they'd like to put on the floor? Okay, we're going to take a vote on Counselor Parker being the pro tem. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Right, so we're at 9, now it's 7 to 0 to 1. I am recused.
7 to 1 to 1.
Who was opposed?
Counselor
I thought she
Bordelon.
was in favor. Oh, I thought she abstained. I'm sorry. 7 to 1 to 0. Counselor Bordelon is opposed, and I am recused.
Oh, yeah, I can go do that.
Can I sit somewhere else too?
You can sit in this one row.
All right. Are we ready? You good?
Start and stop, right? And repeat.
Yes.
Okay, we're good.
Mr. Reiner.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. John Reiner, Director of Planning and Development Services. With me,
Corinne Piazza, Economic and Community Development Manager.
before.
Do you want us to have the motion first, or you want to go ahead and, let's do the presentation?
Okay, all right, quick, thank you. So we'll give a brief presentation. So this is the first time this council has actually, this is the first time we've done an Economic Assistance Fund award in quite a few years. So we wanted to kind of give a little bit of an overview of the process, the application review process, talk quickly of some past projects, just to give people a little bit of context, the application project eligibility, how we determine the awards, and then recommendations and next steps. Next slide, please.
All right, so to provide some background, the program began in 1992, and most recently, the guidelines were adopted and updated in 2017. Essentially, it's a one-time financial reimbursement for public infrastructure improvements or business development expenses associated with business opening, relocation, or expansion. It facilitates the development of businesses that create jobs, increasable tradable sectors in the economy, or generates new and significant taxable property. Basically, it assists projects with their documented infrastructure costs to help these things take place. For the program funding, there's no relationship to the town's current year operating budget. It comes from a CIP allocation. And projects that have been funded since the 2017 policy, it's about $360,000 in funds, with a total remaining balance of about $406,000. The EAF guidelines direct the process of review and basically how the recommendation gets to you from the Economic Development Commission. And overall, in a snapshot, what we're looking at is, does the funding improve the infrastructure of a parcel, regardless of the tenant, if the tenant changes? So is it helping with infrastructure that's going to be very long-standing to help the town see economic development? Next slide, please. All right, so diving into that process, the staff reviews the application. We work with the applicant to identify if there's any additional information needed, and we identify that qualifying amount based on the EAF guidelines. We also look at those program parameters and past awards for precedent and what was awarded. Then an EAF subcommittee made of Economic Development Commission members is brought together, and they play an advisory role in reviewing and recommending that application. They review that essentially to the full EDC,
and then the town council committee of the whole sees it, and then the town council. And of course, that review is based on the program parameters. And on May 1st, the EAF subcommittee and the full EDC commission reviewed and endorsed that proposed award that we'll walk you through with the recommendation, which is why you're seeing it this evening.
So again, just kind of some of the guideline requirements that we are required within these guidelines. The total award may not exceed 2 years' worth of anticipated local tax revenues. So for the whole parcel post-improvement. No more than 50% of the overall project costs will be awarded. So if you're like, how these numbers come up, there is a formula to this. We'll walk you through a slide that shows you actually these program parameters specific to this project and the proposed award. You also have that in your packet. As part of this, it's on a reimbursement basis, so we don't give this money until the project is done, complete. We get receipts, and there's also signage that they have to put on the property showing that this was actually a town-supported project. Also, just to give you a little bit more context, emphasis is really placed upon supporting infrastructure improvements that exceed the life of the specific project use. I can't stress that enough. So even if the use changes, the infrastructure is going to be there. That's some of how we really weigh this. The improvements also have a public benefit, and most projects usually receive about half of their request when we look at these historically. Going back a few years, and one thing you'll notice, how come these projects, 2018, 19, and 20, what's happened in the last 5 years? So really, a lot of our ARPA funding that we've been giving out for business assistance has kind of filled a lot of this gap the last number of years. Now that funding's gone, we're starting to see, requests come in again. So overall, EAF awards have been made for new construction, additions, commercial, housing, and a mix of both. So our last award was also to E.S. Goodman for the standard building on Water Street. That at the time was the largest award we'd ever given out at $116,000. SIFT had received an award back in 2019 for infrastructure and commercial costs around $28,000. Grand Wine and Spirits, I think, back in 2019, infrastructure, new commercial construction, $59,000. Rogers Development over on Fort Hill Road, that was for some new residential work at almost $41,500. And then CrossFit back in 2018 got about $15,000 for their project.
So this slide is the project description portion of the application. We won't read the entire thing here as it's available in the packet, as well as the quantitative info we'll walk you through in the next couple slides. We just want to note simply that the proposed project is a new 29-unit residential building with significant infrastructure improvements.
Next slide.
Oh, thank you. Next slide. And moving on to project eligibility, the program parameters include required criteria as well as preferences. So the difference between those two is required. They have to hit all three. Preferences is essentially if you have competing applications, this would help you decide essentially, what might make one application rise above another if they hit more preferences. As you can see here, this project meets all three requirements and 5 of the 6 preferences, and we actually don't have any other additional applicants at this time, so the preferences would be less about deciding between competing applications, but you can see that they really hit the goals of the project. The program. Next slide, please.
So when we looked at how much the award determination, there's a number of things that we look at. So this slide really gets into all the details on it. It has the parameters and the project specifics on the left, kind of for easy review in relation to the project. These numbers come from the candidate's application and were thoroughly researched and vetted through staff. So for example, we look at the total project cost of what they're sinking into the project is over $6 million. 50% of those construction costs are just over $3 million. The award cannot exceed 50% of the overall project costs. Current taxes generated on the property over a 2-year period is just under $14,000. Annually, the taxes will improve significantly when this is constructed. Total infrastructure costs that were submitted to us was for $241,000. So that was requested amount was larger than what we got into, those qualifying infrastructure costs, which is what we looked at, was about $123,500. And this was based on determining the amount of infrastructure costs with public benefit. Then we looked at that anticipated tax revenue generated over a 2-year time period, which is what the requirement is for a maximum amount of the award, and that was the $119,344.12. And that's where we came up with the proposed project award, which is the maximum amount. It was less than the qualifying infrastructure costs, and this is the number that was approved by the EDC. Next slide, please. And obviously, I kind of took my thunder away in this slide. So the Town Council Committee of the Whole may recommend approval of the EDC endorsed proposed award of $119,344.12 to assist in the project's specified infrastructure costs. And if approved, the COW's recommendation goes to the council for final approval. And then if awarded, the town enters into a contract with the applicant, works with the applicant on process per the EAF guidelines, including, the required documentation for reimbursement of all qualifying expenses. I can't say this enough. This is a reimbursement program. We always get a lot of questions about this. If they don't do the improvements, if they're not built, and they have to show documentation receipts, we work with our finance department on all of that information. And that's all we have. Happy to entertain any questions.
Do you want us to, probably should read the
Motion.
motion. Counselor Good, could you read the motion on page 126? I mean,
move-
127, I apologize, 127.
That's all right. I move to recommend a resolution to approve the grant award of $119,344.12 to ESG 1002 Route 12 LLC /ES Goodman for utility connections, infrastructure improvements, and perimeter sidewalk. Construction costs to be paid on a reimbursement basis for the project meeting all EAF policy requirements.
Second, Pacino.
Okay. First and second. Discussion. Dave, Council Roscoe Merritt, sorry. Council Merritt.
Thank you. You mentioned money that went to a company called CrossFit. It was $59,000. Where are they at?
That was $15,000. They are down by the airport, on the airport business park there, which the name of the road is escaping
Oh,
me
right.
now.
Yeah, right on the corner.
Yeah.
What is their status now? Are they in business? How are they doing?
Council Merritt, I'm going to stop you. We can only discuss the topic on the motion at hand, not the other businesses they presented. That was just examples.
This relates quite very much. If the business was given money and it went out of business, and now we're looking to give other businesses money and we have no assurance of our monies.
So, sorry, we're pulling the slides back up just to show that the intention of the program actually addresses what you're concerned about, and essentially it's to invest in infrastructure that will remain regardless of the business. So, for example, with that project, I believe it was largely in sidewalks and things of that nature and infrastructure, so that whatever business goes in, that investment isn't lost.
And it looks like, if you'd like, you can attend a 5:15 a.m. CrossFit class tomorrow morning there. It looks like it's on Leonard Drive, that's the road.
Yes, I
yeah.
know where it is
Yeah.
now.
Yep,
I
no,
know
their
which building
website
it
looks
is.
active and that they're still offering classes.
Well, all I can say is we'll see what happens in the business world.
And that was back in 2018, I think-ish, so.
People are up at 5 a.m.?
I'm done.
Okay. Council Good.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the sign being put up to show that it's going to be, that the town of Groton is open for business with new developments. I appreciate that. living in the district. Housing is a big concern for us, so I appreciate that. My only question is, my understanding is this is a two-phase project?
Yes.
So this is just for phase one. Now, are they going to be, allowable to apply again when phase two comes up, or is this infrastructure taking care of the site itself?
I think the majority of the infrastructure is being done, I believe, as part of phase one. Could there be some other infrastructure improvements as part of phase two? Certainly. There's no prohibition that they could not apply, but again, this is at the discretion of the council. So this is one of those programs, it's a discretionary grant program. If we have a lot of applications, you can, minimize certain amounts or give people less. I think it's really up to, to the council.
Thank you.
Any others? Council Jones?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you go, there's a slide you had on where the original money comes from. I can't remember what.
Oh, it's, the money is from the from former CIPs. Sorry.
So just like we put for the open space fund, we put money into the economic assistance fund.
Yep.
So it's just, now and then we just create a CIP to fill it back up or put some more in it.
Okay, so it's kind of like a bank of money that we use to help businesses do this. And did we do it? I just can't remember. We did
Well, it is dedicated money through a CIP
Through a CIP.
that's remaining for this purpose.
Okay, for economic.
We didn't do it for this year because
We didn't do it
were-
for this year, right?
No, we did not.
Okay.
Because we still have a remaining balance of $400,000, so this year we knew there were some financial question marks out in the world, so we said, let's hold off. We have a good balance.
We have a good balance.
We're good.
Okay.
But if that balance started getting low, there were years, and, I'm coming up on 11 years here, we put money in the account a few times when it started getting lower, and then there are other years where we'll put it in the CIP, we don't get any requests, and we say, you know what, we can hold on it this year.
So this fund is open to any developer that's, just thinks that they qualify to help with some infrastructure around their project, is that?
If they meet the guidelines, so it's really geared towards small business and infrastructure, and it's not just for any improvements, there has to be that nexus connection between a substantial increase in the taxes they pay, and that's really what sets the bar. If somebody's just making facade improvements, that's probably not going to increase the amount of taxes they pay to the town. They're not going to be eligible for this. Hence why we created, sorry, not to give too long of a winded answer, why through our ARPA program, we created some other type of business programs that didn't necessarily reflect upon tax revenue, but just business improvement.
So it's for developers who are building a structure that wants the infrastructure that we see as improving the tax base, because if they complete this project, we get more taxes and it helps out all that.
Yes, and the infrastructure that they're building isn't just infrastructure for necessarily their project, but even if something happened or changed, that infrastructure they're putting in will live beyond what their business is.
So I'm just looking at the 119,344, and so that was based off of 2 years anticipated tax revenue.
For
So is
phase
that-
one.
For phase one. So is that the normal way that you figure out the amount, is you sort of, is in the 2-year window, what you normally use?
Yeah, so it, in the guidelines themselves, it talks about the estimated taxes for projection for 2 years is the maximum amount that can be awarded. So in this instance, there were more qualifying costs, but the maximum you can award is that anticipated tax revenue for a 2-year
Okay,
period.
So that's the factor. So in other words, they pay about $60,000 a year in taxes. You look at 2 years, it's
Yes.
roughly $120,000. That's the amount they can, and you can give to them.
Yeah.
And so that's what they apply for.
And that estimated 60,000 per year, it will be at build-out of phase one, not today, because today they're paying approximately $7,000 a year.
$7,000, 7,500
Yeah.
they're paying. So we see it as a win for the town, because if we can help them move this project forward, we move from $7,500 a year to $60,000 a year in taxes.
Exactly.
So, and we benefit from that.
Yeah, and a lot of times, especially for small businesses and some of these smaller projects, $100,000 can make or break a project.
And just in terms of how you dispense the money, just so that people understand and I understand, this is a reimbursement basis, so let's just say they finish, I don't know, let's just say the sidewalk, and that was $40,000 to do that piece of it. They would show the receipts for $40,000, you would give them the 40. Is it done sort of piece by piece by piece until they hit the 119?
I'll have to double check to see how we've done the last ones, if it was total project cost and closeout, or if it was piece by piece. I'll have to work with the finance department on that.
But that's what you mean by the reimbursement? Is that
Correct.
Basically just, they spent this much money, however they do it, either piece by piece or total at the end, and you go, okay, great, you did it, here's the receipts, and you
Yeah.
get the money.
Exactly. We inspected that it was done. We see that it was done according to the plan. They give us receipts. Work with finance, a check is given.
Okay. And of the examples that you gave, I guess has benefited the town quite a bit. Do you have a dollar figure of how much, I suppose it was on that chart?
There's about 306,000 since the 2017.
806.
That we've,
300.
yeah, that we've awarded. We should have a slide, we'll have to do this next time, showing of all these businesses, how much they've paid in taxes since the project.
Right.
So-
Excuse me, I said 306, I meant 360.
360.
Yes.
So that's what we've awarded. So hopefully we've received 360 or more, because the building's time has gone on, taxes
Oh,
have gone up, and
definitely.
benefit a lot, so.
Yeah. In that, since 2017, we rewrote the guidelines in 17, the council had to adopt those, but this program has been in existence long before I've been here.
Yeah. Okay, all right, great, thank you.
Counselor McBride?
Thank you. I'm in total favor. This is a great program. I'm glad to see you bringing it forward and supporting development in Groton. I just have a question. How do people find out about this program? I mean, developers have to contact you, or is it out available for somebody to see it on the website? Or
Yeah, the two main ways are it's available on our website, and you can find everything you need on there, the application information, but then also our Economic Development Commission does a lot of outreach, and that's one of the main programs they can point folks to, and they work with small businesses specifically.
Okay, great, thank you. And then one question I have was kind of following Councilor Jones' theory and timing of the cash flows. My understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, they have to pay the taxes first to finance before you're going to reimburse them for costs that they would have paid previously, right? Because you would never know if that 119, it's really up to 119, right?
That's something that we actually work and do a number of comps and work with our tax assessor on figuring out that assessed value number and what we're going to be getting in taxes.
But I guess from my understanding, is it up to 119? Because let's say their taxes, just whatever changes, and their taxes for the 2 years is 100,000. You're only then going to reimburse them the 50,000 for the first year and the 50,000 for the second year.
No, they would get the 119. So this is based on this estimated number.
Okay, so then it's not truly based on the amount of taxes they pay. It's based on the amount of anticipated taxes they pay.
Correct, on the anticipated taxes they pay, which I believe in the case of the standard, they actually ended up paying us more taxes per year than the original estimate. That's the last one I can think of.
Okay, so that would lead me to have other questions, but I trust your judgment that 119 is a solid number, right?
Yes.
Because it's not total taxes they pay, it's based upon good faith that that's what is going to be paid, right?
Correct.
Okay. Maybe in the future, if we could see the analysis that goes behind that, just for further verification, but I'm sure it's going to work out just fine. Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Counselor Bordelon?
Thank you. So my question is, I think Councilor McBride asked one of them regarding how people apply or whatever his question was related to that. But my question is, when's the enrollment period for this application?
This is open. Open enrollment. So it's not like health insurance where you can only sign up for the month of June. This is always open.
Okay. And in this application, when was this submitted? In, I'm just trying to look at the timeline. When does it come to us? So I saw the process, but when did we receive this application?
Yeah, so that's at the top of the application in the packet, and it was in March.
March, okay. So I'm just trying to see for timeline, just to see, kind of mapping out here. Okay, I think this is a great opportunity. Anytime you're improving infrastructure, there's an opportunity to work with a local developer. And as you stated before, I believe the name was The Standard. I was not on the council back then when that was approved, but it seems like there was a great working relationship with this developer. So that is always great to see when people come back to reapply. And what's the metric so for as far as applications that move to the council, if they hit the 3 metrics or the 3 guidelines or your standards, do they all move forward at that point, or what's the determination like?
Correct. If we could pull that slide back up, I believe it's slide 7. If they have to hit the 3 required. So everything in blue on that slide is something that this project did hit. So they have to hit the 3, and then the preferences aren't required. But if you did have competing applicants, that would help you determine who might, move ahead of another one if someone hit more preferences than another. But as noted, we only have 1 applicant at this time.
Okay, so it automatically would move forward.
Correct, because it hit the 3 criteria.
Got it. Okay. All right. All right. So in March, if one was to apply and then there was a competing one, then you might only determine if one, but since there's not a competing person, then this one automatically moves forward is the way I'm understanding it.
And it's not necessarily one versus another if there's enough funds as well. I think the preferences were just written into the guidelines in case you were down to not enough funds and competing applicants.
And
Got
we would not, if somebody met all the required criteria, we would not stop that from moving forward. This is something that the council awards, so we would give that discretion to you.
Perfect. Okay, great. Yeah, no, I think it's great. And after this is awarded, how much funds will be remaining?
It's on our 8th slide. It will be about 208,000 remaining.
287.
Excuse me, 87,000.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, from my perspective, if this is fund that's here, but you guys already set aside for it, and we have an applicant, and they've already done a project in the past that was successful. To me, it's a no-brainer, and it's going to improve infrastructure that's going to withstand the test of time as far as like whoever's in that space, or it's improving the surrounding area. So great to see. How much advertising, like by just being on our website, is there any other areas, like if, a lot of people just don't go to town websites regularly. Is this up on like a Facebook page? Is this on something that you put in the newspaper? Where are you trying to attract more folks to apply?
I think one of our most recent efforts with EDC is a postcard that we gave them to utilize that directs folks to our resources. And then we also do have social media and can feature it on our economic development, Instagram, and Facebook.
Okay, so is it up now? Like, is it up like as a rolling thing? Because like if someone's new and doesn't happen to intersect you with that postcard, because maybe some people don't know, I'm just concerned. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of applicants.
Sure. I think it's just on a lot of different platforms. So website, postcard, and then we can also put it on social media. We're constantly featuring different, did you know about resources that might be available for folks, to your point, so that if they aren't on the website or haven't met someone face-to-face, they can learn about things there as well. And as John mentioned, I think some of the applications may have gone down a little because our ARPA funds over the last few years have been addressing a lot of these needs. So we anticipate seeing some more, and we can definitely push it as far as advertising more as well.
And once we do a social media post about this, if this is actually awarded, that's a great opportunity for us to just put the word out that this funding is there. That's something we can push out to all of you, share with your networks, because we have one reach, but the more the merrier.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's always good to celebrate opportunities that we can offer our small business, especially in our area, and that's helping improve infrastructure. So yeah, no, I think this is great. It's a known developer that we've had a previous working relationship with that had a success with the standard. So, to me, it's kind of, it's known territory. So that's great. So thank you.
Any other questions? All right, time to vote.
I have one more question.
Council Bordelon.
Thank you. If this is selected, when would these monies be awarded?
So if it's selected, so the council meets July 1st, that you'd approve it that night? Is that what I'm not sure the question you're asking.
It's ready to be paid out upon approval, is that right?
Yeah,
So I'm
so,
just trying to understand if you apply in March and it made it to the council, so March, April, May, we're in June. What's the next phase? Is there any more steps, or how does this work for the next phase to like close it out? Like, I was just curious how, I'm just trying to understand for timeline's sake.
so I think Council McBride had a similar question about when we actually pay this. So it could have been Councilor Jones. Once the project is built and they then submit receipts and show proof that it was built, then they get reimbursed. So this does not need RTM approval. I mean, this is the last level of approval is at the regular council meeting on July 1st, and then from there it's authorized, and then we have to work through the guidelines. They have to show that they did the work and show the proper receipts of the cost of what they're asking for actually cost what it was.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And so like this though, this vote though locks in that percent. So if another people, like you put your advertising up and other people apply and there's 87, left, that 108 is not available because they're in the process of their project. Is that how it works? And then say they don't meet the deadlines, then what happens? Then the money becomes available again, or how does that work?
So this money is being allocated and approved by the council. If it's allocated and approved by the council, it's approved by the council. If the council approves the $119,000 and change, and the project costs are only $118,000, well then the excess would go back, it would stay and remain in that fund to be available to someone else. But if the costs are what the award is of what the council awards, there's no time limit on when they have to get that done. They don't have only 6 months to complete the project, so it's locked in.
Got it. Okay, so there's no time restraint on disbursement of the funding once it's approved. If I'm hearing you correctly.
As far as I know, within the policy,
I think overall, there's a 2-year window, just to
Okay.
make sure it doesn't go on forever. But I think as far as your concern about if another applicant came, a week later, to John's point, once the funds are allocated, the applicant would have the chance to receive those. They'd be, set aside. It's much like our pivot grant for small businesses. Once we're working with an applicant, we hold those funds, and we're not, allocating the same funds to multiple businesses in the application
yeah,
process.
so within the Economic Assistance Fund information and guidelines, which was included in your packets, letter B, number 4, under time frame, if the application is approved, project construction must be completed within 2 years from the date of the town council approval, or said approval becomes null and void unless a written extension is requested and approved by the town council. So they have 2 years to get this done from the date of approval.
From July.
Correct.
Okay, all right, so those funds are locked in for 2 years. Okay, well, thank you for explaining it. When the standard was approved and some the other, I think the package store, the Grand Wine and Spirits, that I think I was not on the council at that time either. I think that was on the RTM at the time, so still new to me, it processing, so I appreciate you explaining.
Ready to vote? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes, any nays, abstentions? Okay, that passes 8-0 to 0. How is it 7? We have 9 counselors, 1 recused.
That math bug is hitting you now.
8-0 to 0 with 1 recusal. All right,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
motion adjourned, seconded by
Thank you.
David Good. The time is 9:41. We are adjourned at 9:41.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.